the legendary Hollywood director. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501, A Pleasant Conversation. Please subscribe and vote. After the 3D IMAX technology matures, Fox and others will ask to spread this technology instead of blocking it. As mentioned earlier, it is impossible for theaters to spend money to improve screen projection technology and not get enough movie content. At that time, basically all movies in demand will be converted to IMAX versions for theater screening. Of course, this is actually a little bit, but it depends on how the audience chooses. After all, there are ordinary versions, and the movie tickets are cheap, and the only sacrifice is a little viewing experience and visual spectacle. Moreover, Cameron may not regret it. He is not a person who attaches great importance to money. Every time this guy divorces his wife, he has to spend a lot of money to divorce. Linda Hamilton, as his fourth wife, even divided more than $50 million of property. This is rare in the entire wealthy class. After all, many people would rather play their own games, maintain a husband and wife relationship, or sign a prenuptial agreement to strictly protect their property. Unlike Cameron, he doesn't care at all. Just like he always overdraws the budget when making movies, and then takes the initiative to show the director's salary. Cameron is a director with a complicated personality. It is difficult to figure out what he is thinking. Just like what he said in an interview to some film critics. For actors, the biggest problem will be how much room they have to play in this story. But for directors, actors are only a small part of it, and the effect of the role is always to cooperate with the overall situation. Just like when I was shooting Terminator, I didn't know that it would make T-800 a symbol of the times, and I didn't know that Arnold would become the governor in the end, but things happened like this, and reality is always more dramatic than drama. Film critics said that his works lack respect for film art and are a torture for actors. This guy scolds the actors the most on the set, and he cares a lot if the actors don't perform according to his rules. The deal between Lyman and Cameron has ended. He took a sip of aperitif and seemed to have no interest in persuading Lyman to invest in his studio. I wish you success. I hope to go to the cinema to witness the creation of a cross-era work. Lyman still admires Cameron, who seems gentle and elegant, but is paranoid in his heart, not because of his personality, but because of his promotion of film technology. Although this is their first formal meeting, and they are not familiar with each other, this does not prevent Lyman from respecting his persistence. I think this will be another turning point in the history of film. Mr. Cameron. Hearing this, Cameron showed a surprised and happy expression. His attitude towards Lyman is no longer that of a trader, but a unique interest. What should I say? Cameron frowned. He is a very confident person and does not think there is anything wrong with Lyman saying that his movie can change the times. The more he knows about 3D IMAX, the more he can understand how this concept being applied to movies will have a huge subversion on the audience's past viewing experience. Of course, the premise is that he succeeds. If he fails, he has never thought about the possibility of failure. Perhaps today's dinner has refreshed my view of you. I always thought you were a conservative director before, but now, I seem to think that working with you is not unacceptable. Unfortunately, this thought only lasted for a few seconds in my mind. Do you know why? Cameron said to himself, because working with a studio is a very troublesome thing in itself. Even the big six, they have sufficient funds, and they will have various concerns, such as budget issues, cost issues. As a director, you should also know how troublesome this is, so, well, Cameron still thinks that Firefly Pictures is not up to standard. Lyman touched his forehead, a little speechless, but he couldn't refute it. To be fair, Hollywood is already a monopolized industry. The Paramount Act destroyed only Paramount, but it cannot stop the emergence of more powerful studios than Paramount. Cameron said objectively, if it weren't for this, I would feel less worried if I worked with you. I don't want to have to explain the lens functions or effects to some misers during filming. They always like to do big things with small money, but you are different. You understand movies better than them and see the potential of 3D embarks. I think it would be a pleasure to work with you. Of course, it's just a thought. Don't take it to heart. The fact is that Cameron himself has no specific shooting plan for the new project because the new technology is not enough to meet the shooting standards in his mind. Moreover, he himself doesn't know which of the 6 major companies he will work with. He hasn't even perfected the script and hasn't passed the review. Of course, Lyman was not so obsessed with Avatar, but he still regarded tonight's meeting as a breakthrough, and he also saw a little hope. For example, just assuming a part of the investment share, and then indirectly intervening in the Avatar series, making Firefly Pictures one of the investors of Avatar. After chatting, the two had dinner together. During this, Lyman was a little thoughtful, and not so focused. After all, he coveted the movies shot with new technology, even though Cameron clearly stated that he would only cooperate with the top studios. Cameron ate very relaxed, and was vaguely excited. After all, the optimism and affirmation revealed by Lyman greatly increased his vanity. The affirmation of fans was one aspect, and the director with outstanding achievements in the industry was another feeling. I will let my legal team contact you. Goodbye. Before getting in the car, Cameron nodded to Lyman, and after saying this, he left. Lyman waved his hand, watched his car disappear on the street, and started the car to go home. But what Lyman didn't know was that all of this was captured by a freelance journalist. After all, exclusive news from both Cameron and Lyman is very valuable, not to mention that the two of them were suspected of having a great time chatting and collaborating on a new film. Yes, after the paparazzi accidentally saw the two of them enter the club, he quietly waited by the side, and finally he captured these photos. In an instant, he even thought of the headline of the news, which was his professional sense. Although he is just one of the countless paparazzi in Hollywood, he also has the heart of a reporter, right? So, immediately, he contacted the buyer to sell the news, and his mood became comfortable. This exclusive information, especially involving two heavyweight directors, is naturally very expensive. Chapter 502, Shooting Yourself in the Foot. Please subscribe, vote. February is already halfway through, but no one expected, including Lyman, to have such explosive news at this point. Yes, Cameron and Lyman had a great conversation. This was the front page headline of the New York Daily. In just a moment, it was reprinted by major media and became the subject of discussion by countless people. In fact, in February, there were Oscar-nominated works and the hot momentum of the mist, but they did not expect their own works to be robbed of their popularity. It is no wonder that for entertainment audiences across the United States, the reason for the overwhelming attention to this topic is nothing more than that these two people are very low-key. Whether it is Cameron or Lyman, as directors, their works have accumulated a large number of fans, but except for the release of their works, these two people neither participated in too much media exposure, nor had their personal lives disclosed by newspapers. Simply put, the audience has a strong desire to pry into their privacy. It happened that the two met privately, and no one knew what they talked about, which made people even more puzzled. This is more valuable than any single piece of news, so it caused quite a stir. Moreover, there was a photo of the two of them in the same frame as evidence, with details, and it felt like they had caught an affair. When the internet was roaring, the editorial team of the New York Daily News, which bought the first-hand information, was laughing so hard that they were twitching. This level of revelations would greatly promote newspaper sales. While making money, they also gained fame and fortune. How could they not be happy? They even wanted to add fuel to the fire. Look, Cameron is smiling, which means they are very happy to talk. Could it be that Lyman and Cameron are working together to shoot a movie? That would be really exciting. Two of my favorite directors. How could they work together? Directors are like tigers that are feared by the mountains and forests, and they always walk alone. Could it be to attract investment or something like that? As we all know, Lyman's Firefly Pictures has good performance. It's all random guesses. Can't it be two friends having dinner together? The crowd of spectators was very good at eating melons, but they had to force Joseph, the president of Firefly Pictures, to come out and clarify in person. After all, the popularity of The Mist was suppressed, which was like shooting oneself in the foot. In addition, Cameron did not want to expose that he was preparing new projects and experimental technologies, so Firefly Pictures needed to make public what they talked about to reduce the curiosity of the audience. For this reason, Cameron even quickly drafted a contract to transfer the shares of Digital Domain to Lyman. The power of gossip was too great. Even Cameron did not want to be involved. Even if there are only a few photos of them laughing and joking, people can make a lot of associations. In the internet age, everything is so fast that the authenticity of news is infinitely weakened. Everyone has become a free media person and can speak freely on the internet. Even if it is just looking at pictures and talking, these talents can interpret infinite versions of stories like The 1001 Nights. If it is not curbed, this meeting may become some strange news at any time. This makes people want to curse in annoyance. Public figures have taken a big step forward on the road of sacrificing their personal lives in all aspects. In the future, we need to beware of not only the paparazzi everywhere, but also passers-by. After all, this passerby may take out his mobile phone and edit a message to the internet. After that, all kinds of things have been realized one by one. Countless stars have been victimized by this. In the past, they only needed to do public relations with newspapers to block some unnecessary black materials, but now all the masks have been torn off. There is even a saying that goes, those once glamorous stars, with perfect images, that make people want to praise them, are just because they have not been baptized by the internet era. Otherwise, it is not certain who is uglier than who. So, they are only talking about Digital Domain, that special effects company? Yes, Cameron is not going to cooperate on a new project. He is still experimenting with documentaries. Rupert Murdoch glanced at his wife and explained casually, "It seems that Firefly Pictures' acquisition of Digital Domain has become a foregone conclusion." "Oh, Firefly Pictures? It's the film company you said you wanted to acquire," Wendy Deng asked with concern. "It's not me who wants to acquire it, but Shirley Lansing who wants to acquire it, but I can't find an opportunity to intervene. In fact, I'm more optimistic about the acquisition of DreamWorks. But now I think that Firefly's not so worthless." Murdoch sighed. Last year's Paramount annual financial report once again ranked last, which was really not glorious. In this regard, he even thought of changing a helmsman for Paramount. But considering the contribution of Shirley Lansing in maintaining the overall situation in the past few years, he could bear some setbacks. If Paramount's performance still did not improve after the merger of DreamWorks, this would be the last chance to make up for it. To be honest, when Shirley Lansing mentioned Firefly Pictures in the past 2 years, he did not care at all and did not expect the growth rate to be so fast. Otherwise, he would try to acquire Firefly, and he did not necessarily win over DreamWorks. As for Murdoch, he has always focused on the television field for 20th Century Fox, but he does not want Paramount, a high-quality asset, to become a burden on the group. After all, for his news corporation, the best channel for monetization and the most suitable linkage with entertainment resources are in the television field, and he has more than a dozen TV stations under his umbrella. It is clear at a glance, which is more important. Judging from the current results, his strategy is correct. The successful breakthrough of Fox TV network by the 3 major old TV networks is due to his resource tilt. Correspondingly, Paramount, which did not receive much care from its parent company, quickly weakened and was in an embarrassing situation where it had to introduce external reinforcement. At this level of game, for Wendy Deng, it is not a concern. Her marriage with her strong husband is not solid, and she herself has ambitions. Murdoch knows it, but he doesn't care. He never believes in true love. After all, one is 36 years old and the other is nearly 74 years old. It is impossible to be true love. A leader of the Murdoch Group with personal assets exceeding 10 billion, net assets exceeding 40 billion, and a media empire worth more than 100 billion does not need love. When Wendy Deng heard that her husband was optimistic about Firefly Pictures, she was thoughtful. After Wendy Deng left, Murdoch suddenly made another phone call and confided some of his views to his subordinate Shirley Lansing. Resources are definitely concentrated on cable TV, broadband and consulting services, but for Paramount, since Firefly Pictures has its own North American distribution network, it has entered a new circle. so that it may promote film and television cooperation between the two parties. Even if it sacrifices Shirley Lansing's dignity, it must repair the relationship. Compared with money, status, resources, etc., face is not worth mentioning. Even though Paramount was the former partner who helped Lyman gain a foothold in Hollywood, but then the cooperation broke down. Chapter 503 Falling Back. Please subscribe and vote. Eat something first, don't watch it. At about 8 o'clock in the morning, watching Lyman put a stack of newspapers on the dining table and looking indifferent to the breakfast she had carefully prepared, toast with blueberry jam and a cup of warm milk, Eva whispered to reprimand. Okay. Glancing at his somewhat angry girlfriend, Lyman calmly put away the newspaper and enjoyed the food. By the way, the newspaper's coverage of the film's release has finally returned to normal, which is what he cares about. At the same time, The Mist is still harvesting box office. After 3 days of popularity over the weekend, on the working day of the next week, although people's enthusiasm for watching movies has slightly declined, the overall trend is still very optimistic. The attendance rate is still around 60%. July 15th, Monday. The Mist closed at $17.62 million, while the rival ushered in a small rebound, earning $7.59 million. As for the movies of the same period, none of them has broken the $5 million mark, so there is no need to worry. On Tuesday, the traditional discount day for theaters, The Mist earned $16.55 million in a single day, and on Wednesday it dropped slightly again, earning $15.46 million. After the second week, amid the envy and jealousy of many small film companies, The Mist's second week box office totaled $72.65 million, although it is a bit regrettable that it did not break $100 million. Considering the limitations of this type of subject matter, compared with investment, it is also very confident in the market. The Mist easily achieved the weekly box office champion. The Mist, an excellent film that faces fear directly. After this week, the cumulative North American box office of The Mist has exceeded $135.9 million, completely dominating the February schedule. Director Lyman has made another move, spending less than $70 million and taking back more than half of the investment in just 10 days, winning the box office championship for 2 weeks. People have to sigh again about his profitability. The Mist is an excellent work that criticizes class contradictions in a horror show. The satire of religious fanatics is an incomparable black humor. This time, The Mist excited the critics. Articles interpreting the film's scenes can be seen in newspaper columns almost every day. With the gradual fermentation of word of mouth, the crew's hard work in road shows, and the publicity and marketing expenses that were not wasted, the box office trend of The Mist remained very good in the third week, and for the audience, their enthusiasm for discussing the film became more and more involved. The blank space at the end is very good, perfectly reproducing the kind of unfinished, but meaningful thinking in the novel. That is, in the fog, the direction forward is invisible, the way out for the future is invisible, but before being abandoned, one must bravely pursue the light. The miscomedy in the story reminds me of the most common market maker in the stock market. She first sells a piece of good news to raise the stock price, attract the optimism of retail investors and various investment funds, and improve the overall market. Then, she actively operates, and finally makes investors believe that her company is profitable. The disclosed performance and financial report data are very good, and the overall market continues to rise. As a result, when the situation is very good, the market maker takes the initiative to smash the market, cash out crazily, cause panic, and sell at the bottom. P.S. After Carmody's death, those believers hid everywhere, and their silent appearance was very much like the crazy investors who followed the trend and sold. Haha. The section in the supermarket in the middle is really ironic about the division of people's psychology into camps, and the irony is cold. In the terror and despair, the outbreak of negative emotions is too terrible. I don't know how much hatred those poor people who were thrown out by their own kind to commit suicide, and please the god of death would have at that moment. None of them were direct murderers, but each of them was an accomplice. This movie emphasizes one thing: in the face of disaster, whoever deceives people's hearts should die. On February 23rd, the box office of The Mist fell to $11.57 million, Under the active operation of Blue Butterfly Pictures, the decline was less than 30%, which is rare. After all, this is just a horror theme, and the lifespan of the screening cycle is usually not high. According to normal market rules, love and comedy are the types that can maintain box office performance in the long run. Of course, this box office still surprised a number of film studios, but after being surprised, they felt that the competitive pressure of the box office was not too great, and there was still a lot of market left. In the following week, The Mist has always maintained a very benign downward trend, with neither the possibility of a sharp collapse nor the possibility of a sharp rebound. After 3 weeks, the North American box office of The Mist has accumulated $178.5 million, and there is no suspense about breaking $200 million in the local market. According to the market forecast made by Blue Butterfly Pictures, as long as there is no box office dark horse in the schedule, the North American landing point of this movie should be around $220 million. Under the operation of Blue Butterfly Pictures, at the end of the second week, The Mist began to release copies in overseas regions. Although most regions will not fight at home like the United States for The Mist, resources are tilted very much. However, under the influence of the quality of the film itself, and the excellent reputation of the audience, the momentum of overseas screenings is not bad. Although it is not as good as North America, after a week of screening, it basically sits at the top of the weekly box office charts in major regions. Even in France, because of Lyman's own appeal and the media's long-term tracking reports, he has a sense of striving for his hometown, and broke the local horror movie box office record, earning $34 million in a week, which is the highest box office in the whole of Europe. In Germany, where the political atmosphere is more serious, people are also quite interested in the various thoughts revealed in The Mist, rather than the brainless bloody American horror movies. Apart from these two regions, there is nothing much to say about the rest. For example, in the UK, Belgium, and even the Middle East, South Korea or Japan, local audiences are not very enthusiastic about The Mist. It can only be said that it is one of the viewing options, rather than a strong demand for watching it. But even so, with so many distribution markets, all the cumulative amount is a considerable fortune. It has successfully exceeded $80 million in more than a week, and it is also announced that The Mist has not yet participated in offline operations, and the investment cost of publicity and distribution has been recovered, and it has begun to make a profit. As for the new year, in 2005, Firefly Pictures has a good start, which has made this studio the focus of media attention again. It's a pity that Lyman is no longer a simple director. Don't you see that after Spielberg established DreamWorks, he also deliberately alienated the media and reduced exposure? After all, they are all the bosses of film companies, and they are still showing up all day long. Isn't that a loss of face? Lyman is naturally the same. Chapter 504 Benefits, Subscriptions, Vote. The success of The Mist is very beneficial to several actors who participated in it. New York, the central square of Manhattan. The already busy street gathered more people than before, and unexpectedly, these people did not go shopping in the nearby commercial brand stores, but gathered together, holding cheering signs in their hands. A passerby glanced and found that the names of actors such as Nicolas Cage and Eva Green were written on it. Thoughtful. Yes, the roadshow of The Mist crew has not ended yet, but it is also coming to an end. A group of main creators appeared one by one with the introduction of the host. Then the promotional content of the event was launched. Among them, Eva felt the most different. As the role of comedy in The Mist was cursed by the audience, she felt as if she had gained a new situation, just as Cage said, playing a role that is not positive and being scolded by the audience. Although it feels uncomfortable, it also means that the character creation is successful. A villain who is not scolded is not a good villain. What's more interesting is that the critics have given her performance a high evaluation this time and no longer say that she is dispensable. This is a good thing. In the past, she was often ridiculed for not being able to act. Even in a big drama, like New York Trip, as the heroine, her presence in the play was not high, and she was vaguely suppressed by the little girl played by Fanning. Although the audience recognized her image, the sharp-tongued film critics did not give up teasing her. But after The Mist, it seemed that everything turned around. The audience did not accept her role, but the film critics praised her. Even in the interview, those media reporters were humble and recognized her, and seemed to think that her performance was very good. In the usual road shows, the host also took good care of her, and always led the topic to her. All of this made Eva very confused. However, she seemed to understand why those actors with good market appeal like to take some roles with performance space, or simply go to the independent art circle to hone their acting skills. An actor may occasionally sell well at the box office, or have someone to support him, but if he wants to go long term, it is still his own business ability. For people in the industry, they can always distinguish who is a meteor across the sky or a mainstay in the industry. In other words, Eva has been making progress compared to her past self. From being a bit player, playing supporting roles was difficult, to being able to successfully play the leading role of a movie, and she is not the kind of eye-catching vase. There are vases every year, but it is rare to be a leading lady. Even the most profit-driven Hollywood has its own set of actor standards. For example, most of the performance opportunities are chosen based on strength and traffic. After the routine road show, the group went to NBC to record the show. Here, almost the entire production team is revolving around them, ignoring several singers and dancers who are not popular and have no heat. Well, this is very Hollywood. The more popular you are, the more you will be sought after, and you will be respected by capital, even if you only appear as a cash cow. Just like recently CAA has raised the level of her contract conditions, which has become more favorable to Eva. After all, once The Miss was released, in addition to box office incentives and film remuneration, various advertisements, commercial endorsements, and invitations to participate in activities came one after another. She was overwhelmed by the money given to her by others. This was under the advice of her agent Johnson, who carefully selected brands that matched her image before accepting advertisements. Moreover, after this time, her salary has been quoted to the public at $8 million, and she must also participate in the North American box office share. This number is rare for second-rate male stars, but it represents the threshold for first-tier female stars. Hollywood's characteristic of despising women will never change. After all, an Oscar-winning actress participates in a movie and is the female lead, and the salary she gets is not as good as that of a male supporting role with some weight. It can be seen that the essence of Hollywood is still male power, and there is no so-called equality. Many female stars have publicly complained about this injustice, but Hollywood still does what it should do, and even the agency thinks so. After all, in a top power game, more than 95% of the people in power, such as directors, producers, photographers, are men. How can we talk about equality? However, ironically, Hollywood is a place where women's rights are loudly called. It is also amazing to just shout without changing. As for the male lead Cage, he is also very active, accepting interviews and attending various high-end parties all day long. Of course, compared with Eva, who has just tasted this kind of scenery, she will be confused and panic, but Cage has long been accustomed to it. Among them, Samuel has made a lot of money in his acting career. This black movie star has participated in many works, but not many of them are box office hits. With the success of The Mist, his salary will naturally increase, and the producers who provide scripts will often contact him. Of course, when some people are proud, others will be disappointed. Will Smith, who has finished the promotion, has been very melancholy recently. His agent had previously praised the prospects of the project National Rival so much that it would be a crime not to accept it, and also talked about broadening his acting range. What was the result? This project was originally intended to be a small win for a big gain. He is the biggest star in the entire crew. Although it made a profit, the role he played was not recognized by the audience. It completely consumed his market appeal. Why? The love saint he played in the play is a master who teaches men to pick up girls. Once the date is successful, he will get paid. This movie has some stereotyped descriptions of women. Several characters in it are jealous and competitive. Smith then seized this mentality and gave his clients a full solution bait. How should I put it? The character was too frivolous in the beginning, and it felt very disrespectful to women. If it weren't for some whitewashing in the later plot, this wave of female fans would have left. After all, it's not good for your favorite idol to play a philandering and frivolous role, especially now that Will Smith is not based on his acting skills. His agency positioned him as a black idol template in advance. His image is very positive and humorous. It is a weapon to capture fans, especially for those black audiences who are very satisfied with Will. After all, his skin color is a plus. But even so, after the box office of Rivals was not ideal, some topics emerged, which gave Will a headache. He also needed to spend extra money on public relations to save the public image he created. All these factors added up. Will Smith was not calm. Less than half a year after contacting the agent, the new agent James Lasseter was fired. Of course, he selectively forgot that Rivals was more affirmed by him. After all, even an agency cannot force an actor to choose a role, let alone an agent. But there must always be a sacrifice. Chapter 505 Questioning. Subscribe. Vote. James C. White looked back at the luxurious manor in front of him with some loneliness, feeling extremely desolate. The questioning of his ability and vision just now might become the experience he least wanted to recall. No one expected that Will, a black man who was usually quite polite, would be so ruthless. Signing an agreement with a crew of Rivals was your biggest mistake. Even if the movie is profitable, there is almost no return to me, and all the benefits go to the theaters and investors, and even the director and producer. After the revenue did not meet expectations, you did not pay attention to properly guide the fans. The role was not well perceived, and I spent millions of dollars to reduce the impact. Filming Rivals lost more than I gained. These could have been avoided. It was all your decision-making negligence. These words were said by Will Smith in front of the CAA executives. James did not dare to refute, and could not say a word, and could only quietly wait for his fate. Yes, being an agent sounds glamorous, and he is also an agent of CAA, but few people know how much pressure they have to face for this identity. Not to mention that he worked in the mailroom for 5 years to become the lowest level agent. But even if they become senior agents, their status is still not equal in the eyes of these big names. The acting contracts are worth 10 or 20 million yuan, and the commission alone is 1 million yuan. But every time they fail in the selection, it will bring about changes in work. Or to put it this way, CAA is the company that changes agents the fastest. Jim Carrey has changed 5 times in 2 years. Of course, these people are not leaving CAA, they just want to change the team to serve, so CAA usually stands on the side of the client. Anyway, in order to get huge profits, connections, and influence, CAA's agents basically do things in fear. Occasionally, a project is successful and promoted to a high position. Occasionally, a failure, they are demoted to a low-level agent and bet again. James C. White also knows that the reason why he is facing questioning is that Rivals is just an inducement, and more importantly, Will Smith hates him. If he doesn't say anything, CAA won't actually care. Then, James suddenly returned to 5 years ago and became an agent without big-name clients and not specially cared for by the company. This is the punishment he got for this. Just after he left in a bleak manner, Charles Andrews was talking enthusiastically with Will Smith in the luxurious manner. My assistant has already told you what I meant, Charles. What do you think? We can only convey your cooperation request. Whether it can be successful depends on Lemon. After Will Smith felt the benefits of director Lemon's works again, he couldn't help but want to cooperate. I know, if you can bring it up, there will be a chance. CAA does not force clients to complete anything. Of course, if they force it, they can leave. For those who are already at the top of their respective fields, many rules cannot be bound. For example, it is very easy for Will Smith to leave CAA. The reason for this is that there is no good place to go if he leaves CAA. How much more can the other agencies give? Charles glanced at Will and said tactfully, if you are familiar with Lemon Last, you will know that he likes to find actors he knows to star in his works. He is very opinionated. Well, most directors like to use their own team, and so does he. But Will Smith knew that his only contact with Lemon was CAA, so it would not be strange to invite him through CAA. I have met him several times, but he certainly won't take it too seriously. Will said, I hope that, if there is news about his new project, I can mention it briefly. I'm very willing to cooperate with him. Salary can be discussed. If you want to convince him, salary is not the key point. Charles shook his head and said, he has his own production company and now has distribution channels. Maybe by next year, he will make more money than DreamWorks did 2 or 3 years ago. However, I will convey my intention to cooperate, but don't hold too high hopes. Now the unified idea of the top management of CAA is to try their best to cooperate with Lyman, not only because of the benefits, but also because of the attraction of such a director to actors. Although the leading actors and supporting roles are all selected by Lyman, those minor roles are all packed in by CAA, which is also very attractive to many actors. There is no doubt that for an agency like CAA, sometimes big name directors are much more important than big name stars. After all, without the content of the project, where would the actors and stars come from? Okay. At this time, Lyman once again came to the digital field. Cameron was eager to make a deal, and Lyman went along with it. After getting this share, Lyman gradually acquired some more shares, which already controlled 67% of Digital Domain. He was undoubtedly the largest shareholder. Brandy? Scott asked, or wine? Several shareholder representatives also came to the table. Scott set up a drinking party, naturally to discuss the future operation of the company. As for these representatives, they actually supported Scott, which is why the board of directors rejected Cameron. Of course, their identities today are all witnesses. It is Scott who can prevent any accidents from happening and force the major shareholders to make concessions with voting rights and representing the interests of shareholders. After all, we had such a warm chat before, we couldn't help but be on guard. So, Lyman, you have almost understood the current situation in the digital field. Can you tell me what you think? Lyman smiled and found Scott's little thoughts very interesting. I don't understand the management of the company. In fact, the daily operations of Firefly Pictures are now handled by Joseph, and I'm only responsible for project development. So, let the professionals answer. Lyman glanced at Benjamin Joseph and took a sip of brandy. Joseph nodded politely and said, Mr. Ross, we all agree that you will continue to serve as an executive officer. The shareholders of the board of directors, including Lyman, are also sure that your talents can lead the digital field to better development. But, Joseph said here, and glanced at Lyman slightly, but Lyman didn't seem to care at all. We sincerely recognize the value of Digital Domain, but some things still need to be discussed in order to maintain our friendship for a long time. After all, none of you here want to sell Digital Domain outright and have retained a certain amount of shares. We have not mentioned restructuring the board of directors, but how can we protect the rights of the major shareholders? Mr. Ross, what do you think? At first glance, it is indeed so, and it is a bit unfair, but I believe that the current situation of the board of directors is most conducive to the management of the company. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506 Restrictions, Subscriptions, Votes Required. Scott's answer was not confident, but it was indeed the most true answer in his heart. He now represented the opinions of most shareholders, and of course he did not want Lyman to interfere too much in the board of directors. It is almost conceivable that once the reorganization is completed, the shareholder representatives will definitely be dominated by Lyman's faction. This is inevitable. But we also need some means to protect our own interests. Joseph still smiled, and Lyman remained silent. So, what do you mean? It was said before that once Firefly Pictures becomes a shareholder, in addition to assuming bank debts, it will also invest $50 million in technology research and development. But there is one requirement. The board of directors will not be reorganized, but the AB system will be adopted. Lyman, as a major shareholder, must have half of the voting rights plus the priority of subsequent capital injection shares. In other words, the board of directors must give up half of the seats, and subsequent share transactions cannot miss Firefly Pictures. After Scott knew the answer, his expression could not help but become gloomy. It was not surprising that there was a request, and it was also within Scott's expectations. He glanced at Lyman. Is it interesting to play deep? If this person's words were not approved by Lyman, Scott would not believe it at all. In other words, Lyman gave his own conditions through Joseph's mouth. This won't work. If I have half the seats, how can I manage the company? Joseph was not affected by Scott's tone at all. Several other shareholder representatives were also muttering something in private. But it didn't matter. He looked very easy to talk to. If half of it doesn't work, we can talk about it, but we need to formulate a performance agreement for the senior management. If the company continues to lose money year after year and can't protect the interests of shareholders, what should we do? Resign? No, most of the visual effects companies are operating at a loss, grabbing the market and updating technical reserves for future profits. Scott said helplessly. He really didn't think that the digital field would be able to break even in the next few years unless there are big projects every year, but it was difficult to do it when Cameron was still there, so how could it be that simple? But if Firefly Pictures doesn't interfere in personnel matters, there must be a restrictive clause. Otherwise, you should buy back the shares and become the majority shareholder yourself. We give up. Joseph said seriously. But the more serious he was, the more annoying it was. Lyman, who was standing by, couldn't help but laugh at Scott's pent-up temper. He didn't expect this guy to be so mean. Lyman sighed and quickly came out to smooth things over. After all, he still recognized the value of the digital field. As for Scott's concerns about outsiders leading insiders, intervening in management at will, and being unreliable like Cameron. So, in fact, he didn't deliberately target him. This guy really loves the digital field deeply and has invested all his energy in it. Okay, Scott, what we mean is that Firefly Pictures needs a certain right to speak, not to seize power. The reason why I want to acquire the shares of Digital Domain is that I value the visual effects technology you have developed. Therefore, if you are no longer in charge of Digital Domain, we cannot be willing to do so. Do you understand? Lyman said. However, necessary maintenance measures are also taken for granted. We can't invest a large sum of money, but have no say in anything. This is unrealistic. Voting seats and repurchase rights are just a kind of protection. If the company operates well, we will definitely have no problems. But what if it does? Our interests are affected, and we have to defend our rights. I hope everyone can understand the order of priority. Scott is a technical talent who is not honest, but not shrewd. After hearing what Lyman said, he really couldn't refuse with his face. After all, people have said that, if there is no problem with the company, there is nothing to say, and if there is a problem, it is reasonable for the major shareholder to come forward. How can this be refuted? Up to now, Lyman has been very polite. If he didn't understand the visual effects circle and was an outsider, his first step would be to unite shareholders to reorganize the board of directors and directly bypass the management. But he still didn't do it because in the internet industry, talent is more important than assets. This is a place that relies heavily on creativity. Moreover, Scott Ross is indeed capable. What Digital Domain lacks is a stable source of funds, not technology. At least, not now. Currently on the market, apart from Industrial Light and Magic and Weta Digital, Digital Domain is the most powerful. The three companies almost share 80% of the global visual effects revenue, of which Industrial Light and Magic accounts for half. This is the result. Of course, this does not mean that Lyman is willing to let Scott be uncontrollable within the company. He is the first shareholder and has absolute control. Even if he does not understand technology, Scott is just a partner and can be a senior worker, not an equal player. He does not have the qualifications. Looking at the confident Lyman and the smiling Joseph, as if everything just now was a normal request, Scott found himself in a dilemma. Lyman is not Cameron. He is not irritable, nor annoying, and even most shareholders think that his joining is very beneficial to Digital Domain. To be honest, if it weren't for Scott's past authority and recognition, these shareholders and investors would not have come forward to support him. After all, they only want benefits, not ideals. In other words, of all the people present, only Scott regards Digital Domain as his hard work and can't bear to see it wasted. The others all regard it as a tool for profit layout. As for who the owner of the tool is, does it matter? Scott, Digital Domain's financial situation is not good. The current biggest competitors are rapidly grabbing the market. Do you want Digital Domain to be left behind by them in the future? Especially Industrial Light and Magic. As long as you agree to our requirements, the usual management will remain the same, and I will immediately inject 50 million, and your shares will not be reduced. If not, many things can no longer be discussed. Scott thought silently and finally nodded. He knew that he wanted to defeat Industrial Light and Magic. Prove to that rude and impolite person that Digital Domain is not lacking anyone, and it is not an unnecessary junk asset. As long as he doesn't make mistakes and doesn't give Lyman a chance, he believes that Digital Domain will go smoothly. Even if you think in a better direction, Lyman at least likes to talk sense and is easier to get along with than the unreasonable Cameron. Moreover, this man has money. After a lot of wrangling, in the presence of shareholders, Scott and Lyman finally signed a backup agreement. If there is a decision in the digital field that will harm shareholders' profits, Lyman has a veto right, and if shareholders sell their shares, Lyman can buy them first. Chapter 507 Direction, Subscriptions, Votes Required. After the personnel changes were temporarily suspended, Lyman followed Scott to meet with employees from various departments. Before Lyman took over, Digital Domain was short of funds, and had already laid off several batches of employees. Therefore, people's hearts were still not settled, fearing another wave of layoffs. Lyman also appeased them as usual, and he had to promise, first, there was no problem with the work itself, and he would definitely not fire them. Second, the company's R&D budget was sufficient, so there was no need to worry about having nothing to do, and if you were capable, you would be rewarded generously, regardless of salary or authority. Third, if you were incompetent and could not do this, it was reasonable to get out. After saying all the good and bad things, many people breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone knew Lyman, and they also knew that he was the major shareholder at the moment. Since there was no change in the management and promised to pay the salary on time, they were naturally satisfied with their ability. Not everyone had great ambitions and was unwilling to lag behind others. As an employee, I get paid for my work and I will not be fired easily. How can I not be stable? Sure enough, after the promise was made, the employees of each department felt relieved. Here, the technical backbone of the digital field, led by Scott Ross, took Lyman to inspect the research and development of visual effects technology. The ideas that were reluctantly abandoned before were picked up one by one. For example, better scene rendering. This is what the digital field is best at. In terms of environmental rendering alone, the entire visual effects field is second to none. Then Lyman visited everywhere and asked about the recent technical reserves of Industrial Light and Magic and Weta Digital. These two guys, one can use green screen motion capture technology in public relations without a studio, the other is assisting Cameron in developing 3D rendering and avatar. As for the rest, the two technologies have their own strengths, but there is really no gap. In other words, the three companies can basically do the special effects orders for the projects on the market now, and the difference is how much they cost. For example, for large scenes, it would be cheaper and less troublesome to find Digital Domain, and the other two companies could do it. So in the next step, in addition to continuing to update the technical reserves in the areas he is best at, Lyman also made a request, hoping to learn from Industrial Light and Magic that the motion capture technology can achieve adaptability to environmental factors, rather than laying a special studio to assist in shooting. In later generations, almost most special effects companies are pushing this step, and the difference is nothing more than who is more powerful, or what the focus and market selling points are. Lyman thought that this aspect must be prepared in advance, and not to let Industrial Light and Magic monopolize the technology all of a sudden, before reacting to tackle the problem. As for 3D IMAX, the theaters are not in a hurry, and Digital Domain is useless if they are in a hurry, unless Cameron is willing to use his project as an experiment and hand it over to Digital Domain for advancement. Unfortunately, he will definitely not agree, not to mention that Weta Digital has the support of the New Zealand government's high-tech policy, and the 6 major companies prefer to cooperate. Without him, the movie tax rebate is a trump card. With the investment cost of special effects blockbusters of 100 million or 200 million, this saves a lot of money. Scott is more familiar with technology. In the aspects mentioned, there are teams developing digital products. He is also very confident. In the past, they were short-sighted because they had no money. Now that they have funding, they should push forward vigorously. Lyman is also very satisfied with the confidence of everyone. Although he knows that special effects blockbusters will account for an increasing proportion of the market in the future, he is definitely willing to be ahead of his competitors. At least, he should not fall too far behind. I know that the visual effects industry is under great pressure, but I also hope that we can make a name for ourselves with the funding. After saying this, Lyman turned around and left, returning to Beverly Hills. After that, a few more comfortable days passed. The Oscars are coming. During this period, The Mist continued to maintain a very stable downward trend. The daily box office in the third week was basically between 6.5 million and 8.7 million, a 30% drop from last week. Then, several new movies entered the market, such as Lionsgate's Diary of Mad Black Woman, which earned $5.06 million on the first day of its release. For a low-cost production, it is already good, which also exacerbated the box office decline of the old works. As for the Oscars, it is basically scheduled to be held at the Kodak Theater on the evening of February 27th. The competition for this award ceremony is fierce. At the same time, it can be seen that the biographical film The Aviator led by Martin Scorsese has the potential to dominate, with 11 nominations including Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Actor. Following closely are Mark Forster's Finding Neverland and Lemon's $1 Million Baby, both of which were nominated for 6 awards, but did not win 3 awards. So this year, if the judges don't play tricks, it can be seen that the grand prize will belong to these 3. A lot can be seen from the nominations every year. Then, the main force of the first group competing for the award has begun to emerge, but overall, Lyman feels that Finding Neverland has the greatest chance of winning. First, director Martin has not been loved by the Oscar judges for a long time. Even if he has produced many masterpieces, he basically can't win any awards. Second, Lyman is nominated for Best Director for the first time, and the jury is unlikely to hit the mark and give it. Furthermore, Lyman himself felt that the 3 works were on par with each other. Perhaps in terms of box office, $1 Million Baby had a slight advantage. After all, for the growing female market, the strong thinking promoted by $1 Million Baby is still very appealing to feminism. But when it comes to the Oscars, it is at a disadvantage. Generally speaking, Hollywood's political stance has always been to flatter the left. There are countless die-hard forces supporting the Democratic Party, and there are an outrageous number of Hollywood people who speak for it during the canvassing process. However, the intention of this movie is somewhat right-leaning, so it is normal that the judges do not support it. You know, Hollywood will still be left-wing for decades to come. If anyone can make a movie about black people, homosexuality, and anti-war, and the quality is not bad, it is impossible not to be nominated. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which had almost no gains in 2018, is the most typical example. The best original screenplay actually lost to Get Out. It is so direct that there is no need to cover it up. You know, Get Out is a big box office hit, with full commercial attributes. Why did they look down on Jim Carrey's nomination for Best Actor for The Truman Show? What a slap in the face. They also said that the judging is not based on box office, but every year the big selling movies don't get any important awards. But when they offer a black man as the male lead, they are willing to give awards, not to mention Black Panther, which is even more outrageous. It can be said that the Oscars have changed since the beginning of the new century. They are linked to the political trend. No wonder their influence and credibility are getting lower and lower. Chapter 508, Chatting. Subscribe, vote. The nomination list is the ticket to enter the Oscars. In order to get $1 Million Baby nominated, Warner's public relations team did a lot of work. Basically, they were busy communicating with the judges and soliciting votes for 2 whole months. Of course, public relations is very expensive. Just for this one thing, they almost threw in more than $7 million, and there is no guarantee that they will win the award. After all, the Oscars are voted by secret ballot, and it is hard to say who the judges will vote for, and whether they are principled. But one thing is certain, if you don't do public relations, you will definitely not win the award. This is the rule. It was just past 5 o'clock when Lemon took Eva to the vicinity of the Kodak Theatre. The red carpet had been laid out, and the media was ready, waiting for the show to start. In the temporary waiting venue, Lemon had already met up with the crew, just 3 people, Clint Eastwood, Hilary Swank, and Morgan Freeman. Clint was still a little serious, while Hilary had lost a lot of weight, presumably to control her figure. After all, after playing Maggie, she didn't have to maintain the weight of a welterweight boxer, which was too strong for an actress. As for Morgan Freeman, he came over to talk enthusiastically after greeting them. To be honest, the two had already worked together twice, and he also recommended him to star in Batman Begins, so they had more contact with each other. "What are you doing recently?" "I'm idle at home." "No one asked you to film?" Lemon was surprised. "There are quite a few, but they don't have many roles, and some scripts are disappointing, and I don't want to take them." Morgan Freeman smiled and said, "Mr. Last, do you have anything suitable?" This is true. Morgan Freeman is one of the black actors who have made it, but he is old and his acting range is naturally narrow. In addition, there are too many unreliable projects in Hollywood, so he doesn't have many choices for acting opportunities. "Maybe there is a chance," Lemon answered casually. "If the role is right, I will invite you." The more they cooperated, the more Lemon felt that this old actor was pleasing to the eye. Soon, it was time to enter the venue. Eva was a little excited and nervous, but it must be said that women are born to be red carpet animals. Even though she was a little nervous, her gait and posture were still very good, but she just walked a little slowly, pacing, and showing a charming smile from time to time. Not to mention the many screams and shouts in the fan areas on both sides, such as "Eva, I love you. Eva, you are so beautiful." After all, Eva's appearance rate in recent times is not too high, so she naturally captured a large number of fans, young and beautiful, with great charm. In addition, the mist is still hanging in the theater, so the popularity is naturally not low. Yes, unknowingly, Eva has become so popular. Lemon sighed in his heart and continued to walk the whole way with her arm in arm. Entering the banquet hall, dozens of round tables were neatly arranged. This was his second time attending the Oscars, and unlike the past, most of the guests gave him face. "No need to stay in your seat stupidly." He took a look and found many familiar faces, so he took Eva to socialize. Everyone around him did the same. After all, the award ceremony had not started yet. "Hello, Mr. Scorsese." A tall and thin man turned around. It was Martin, the director of The Aviator. "Hello, Director Lemon." He was definitely not familiar with her, but he had heard of her and knew her name. After a few pleasantries, Lemon turned to the next person. "Hello, Miss Blanchett." "Hello, Mr. Last, just call me by my name." Kate Blanchett was a little terrified and quickly said, "I have seen every one of your movies, and I look forward to the opportunity to act in your movies." Sure, you are a very good actor." Lemon secretly looked at the representative of the Australian actress. Although she was not beautiful, she had a good temperament, not to mention her acting skills. "I heard that director Alejandro is asking you for a date." "Well, I'm considering it." Kate thought, "I've read the script, and it doesn't seem to be anything special." She actually knew that Babel was invested by Lemon's Firefly Pictures, and the director mentioned it, so she followed the meaning and revealed some of her opinions. She was indeed not optimistic about Babel at first, and as an actress with rich experience in the industry, she still has some judgment. But there is a lot of room for the role to be played, and we are going to the 3 major European film festivals. Lemon hinted. "If that's the case, I'll think about it." After greeting and explaining his ideas for the movie, Lemon stood in line for Alejandro, and then he went around looking for acquaintances again. Suddenly, he saw another one, and walked up to him quickly. It is said that Leo is in high spirits again this year, and he is not greasy yet. His appearance is still online. No big belly, no beard, his head shape is carefully taken care of, his temperament is outstanding, and his facial features are relatively soft. He is still an idol, not a wild one. Of course, he must have been more handsome when he was young. Now he is 31, mature, and no longer immature. But that face is worth 50 million in box office. This guy can make over 100 million in an art film, and he has to admit that he is popular with the audience. He saw Lemon, looked at him and smiled. Director Lemon, I like your bad guys. Haha, I've wanted to meet you for a long time, but I never had the chance. You're too polite. It's probably because I haven't met you. Leo's enthusiasm was not fake. He really liked gangster movies like Bad Guys, otherwise he wouldn't have worked with director Martin so many times. After a chat, more and more people came to the Kodak Theater. The nominated crews gathered together. At this time, Lemon finished socializing and returned to his seat. He saw Hilary Swank adjusting her breathing there and woomy and joked, "Why, are you nervous?" A little. "Relax, I think you have a great chance of winning the award." Hilary Swank smiled, but still couldn't relax. She knew that she was nominated for the Best Actress this time, but her competitors were Annette Bening, Catalina Marino, Kate Winslet and Imelda Staunton. It can be said that none of them were weak, so she really didn't have much confidence. Furthermore, unlike the other nominees from the same crew, Lemon doesn't really care. If he gets the nomination, he gets it. If he doesn't, he gets it. Morgan Freeman has been nominated for several supporting roles before, and this time he gets it again. So what? As for Eastwood, he is even more relaxed. He has participated in the Oscars for decades, almost growing up with him, and he has won awards as an actor, director, and producer. How can he feel anxious about gains and losses? Chapter 509 Actor Award. Subscribe, vote. Around 6 p.m., after several singing and dancing shows, the host Chris Rock came on stage. He is a comedian, but acting is only a secondary position. He usually works as a variety show host at NBC TV. He is very good at talking. After introducing and teasing the guests, the atmosphere instantly became lively. Actually, when I received the invitation from the Oscars, I didn't believe it, because I didn't have any works nominated, but I was the guest host. Watching others accept the awards, I thought, this is really torture, because others can happily walk the red carpet with their female companions. Not only am I alone, but I have to wait for the time to start in the backstage. At this point, Chris widened his eyes funny and scanned the audience from the front row, as if he was really expressing dissatisfaction. So, this person is quite good at controlling the situation. He then said a few witty remarks before bringing the topic back to the nominated works. Naturally, the Oscars also start with the less important awards. Amid the lively music, the first award tonight was the Best Supporting Actress. $1 Million Baby was not nominated for this award, and it was finally won by Cate Blanchett with her natural and capable performance in The Aviator without any controversy. Pa pa pa. Applause broke out. Kate hugged the crew members next to her one by one and walked onto the podium. She was not too excited, but still happy. Below, Hilary was also laughing, which probably meant that she had a better chance of winning. After all, although the Oscars don't like to share the spoils, The Aviator is the most glorious one this year. If it only won some small awards, wouldn't it be uncertain who will win the grand prize? You can't win all the nominations. The Oscars are not so generous. Best Visual Effects, Spider-Man 2. Best Sound, The Incredibles. Best Costumes, The Aviator. Best Song, The Motorcycle Diaries. Then, as expected, just like the momentum during the nomination, the judges really wanted to disgust or compensate Martin Scorsese. In the technical department, the special effects blockbuster was definitely the best, with the project leader of Industrial Light and Magic and Sony Special Effects winning almost all of them. But The Aviator won all the minor awards such as Costume Awards, Art Direction, and Best Makeup. Does it seem that the Oscar judges really appreciate The Aviator? Unfortunately, when it comes to the important awards, such as Best Original Screenplay and Best Adapted Screenplay, it won nothing. As the awards were announced one after another, the atmosphere began to become tense. When the award presenter Sean Penn opened the envelope, the audience stared at him intently. In any movie, when the leading actors and actresses shine, there are always supporting actors to set off the film. A good supporting actor will undoubtedly make the film more brilliant. So, let's see who is nominated for the Best Supporting Actor. After the script was read, Clips of the nominated movies appeared on the big screen one after another. Clive Owen from Intimate, Thomas Church from Sideways, Jamie Foxx from Collateral, Alan Alda from The Aviator and Morgan Freeman from $1 Million Baby. Any of the above could have won the award, but in the end it was Morgan Freeman who won it, perhaps because the judges didn't want to snub the crew of $1 Million Baby too much. Morgan Freeman was quite calm, and his acceptance speech was also very simple. I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the filming of this film, especially the recognition of the judges and director Lyman last. At this moment, Hillary became even more restless and nervous. Best Actor, Clint Eastwood. Congratulations. Lyman thought that the jury was quite respectful, but it is estimated that the Best Picture will not be given to $1 Million Baby, although he has always believed that the film deserves it. Eastwood was a little emotional and said that he would continue to fight. Sidney Lumet was still able to win an Oscar and make movies at the age of 80. I'm still 8 years younger than him. Well, the old man has this ambition, and he did it. He is already 90 years old, and his body looks very healthy, and he still directs and acts. After a break and applause, the award ceremony continued. Next is the Best Actress award. In a moment, Lyman felt that Hillary beside him had stopped breathing, her hands clenched into fists, and her eyes hardly left the envelope. Congratulations to Hilary Swank for playing the role of Maggie in $1 Million Baby. Hillary behind him didn't hear it clearly at all. When her name was announced, her mind was a little confused at first, and then she screamed, stood up and pulled Lyman over, not to mention how excited she was. Lyman didn't remember the list of this year's winners, but vaguely knew that Hillary was the Best Actress. Her performance was indeed wonderful, and except for a little change, the rest didn't change much. She still won the second Little Golden Man. On the stage, she said with red eyes, "I don't know what kind of contribution I have made in my life to be so cared for by the goddess of luck. Of course, I'm very grateful to director Lyman last for his hard work. If he hadn't given me the opportunity, I don't think I would be standing here." Off the stage, several nominated actresses were forcing smiles, watching the winner's excited and incoherent speech, and almost everyone wanted to replace her. Of course, more guests were secretly looking at Lyman. This time, $1 Million Baby almost swept all the acting awards except for the Best Supporting Actress. It was too impressive. Seeing that Lyman helped Cage to make a comeback, his momentum was getting stronger. For a while, everyone had different thoughts, especially the actors, who felt that Lyman's works were promoting people. The new A-level actress Eva was also promoted by him. Of course, the current $1 Million Baby is so impressive that it can highlight how aggrieved The Aviator is. Damn, there is not a single gold content. Martin Scorsese wanted to leave in the middle of the show. If he hadn't been a little rational, he really wanted to leave. Then, the jury was really too much. The Best Director and Best Picture were given to Finding Neverland. Lyman knew that he had no hope. In the previous life, $1 Million Baby could win these two awards entirely because Clint Eastwood had the qualifications. He has been in Hollywood for decades, and it would be bad not to give them. But this was Lyman's first time being nominated, and he might be directly excluded because of his qualifications. Warner's PR team also said so, and suggested aiming for the script award and the acting award. The result was the same. For some reason, he didn't win the script award, but he won a lot of acting awards. But no matter how you compare, director Martin has enough qualifications, and the quality of The Aviator is absolutely guaranteed. At least in Lyman's opinion. Finding Neverland is slightly worse, but they just don't give it to him. What can you do? Chapter 510. Face slapping. Please subscribe and vote. Why does the Oscar hate Martin Scorsese, who was nominated for Best Director 5 times and Best Adapted Screenplay twice before, but all to no avail? Or, why has he been disliked for more than 20 years? This has to do with political and geographical factors. Martin Scorsese himself is a director from the East Coast, who shoots and produces in New York, while Los Angeles and Hollywood are awards on the West Coast. Their regional cultural characteristics doom the two to be incompatible. As we all know, discrimination is not just about race and skin color. Discrimination between states in our beacon country is even more prevalent. The most serious of these is mutual discrimination between the East and West Coasts. In other words, Los Angeles looks down on New York, and New York thinks Los Angeles is just a rural place. If that were the case, it would not be convenient to target him for so many years. During this period, Martin Scorsese had a bad temper when he was young and often said some very offensive words to the Oscar jury, so the jury naturally had a deep negative impression. You look down on me, why should I give you an award? However, director Martin's personal achievements in movies, his popularity and status accumulated by the audience cannot be completely ignored, otherwise it will not be enough to convince the public. Credibility is the foundation of the award, and the jury is not ignorant of this. So they also absolutely give more honors to director Martin's works, but not the gold content. There is nothing to say about this, right? In this way, it can be seen that the Oscar judges naturally reject Martin Scorsese, thinking that you are a New York school and don't know anything about art. Later, Martin took the initiative to give in, and his personality gradually restrained. The Oscars played another trick, which was simply a genius. When selecting The Departed, Martin Scorsese won the Best Director. Is there anything wrong with this? Haha, Martin was so angry at the time. Why? The Departed is an adaptation. Martin saw that the Hong Kong version was good, so he took it and changed the background and character relationships. Strictly speaking, it was an American skin to adapt to American audiences. This guy himself said in an interview, I really didn't expect that The Departed would be so highly praised. Ask yourself, Martin felt that the judges were simply slapping him in the face. Everyone knows that this movie is just for fun. He just thought the original version was good and moved him, so he bought the copyright to remake it. Compared with Gangs of New York, with the same subject matter, how many audiences and fans would think that a remake would be the representative of Martin's decades of directing career? Isn't this ironic and slapping in the face? Even if Martin Scorsese wins the Oscar with this, where does that put Andrew Lau and Alan Mack? They are the original version, so the Oscars don't want to give them the Oscars. At least a best foreign language film would be fine. In summary, the Oscars still don't like Martin Scorsese, but he is too old, and they keep suppressing him, which makes the Oscars seem like a group of narrow-minded people. That's right, a group of old stubborn people, reminiscing about the golden age. Think about it, Johnny Depp won the crown with the Pirates of the Caribbean series, which seems quite ironic. Edward Scissorhands didn't win, but a special effects blockbuster. Haha, the Oscars are really good at playing. If you count them, it wouldn't be the first time that the Oscars have collective brain cramps. Otherwise there wouldn't be so many audiences mocking them with Best Water Queen and Worst Film. Of course, this has nothing to do with Lemon. After the awards, the 3-hour award ceremony was declared over, and then there was the party hosted by Vanity Fair. While most of the guests were holding glasses and socializing everywhere, the media had already begun to arrange tomorrow's entertainment news, such as the male and female leading actors of $1 Million Baby both won the Little Golden Man, or The Aviator won 6 out of 11 nominations, but the most critical Best Director and Best Picture were won by Finding Neverland. In other words, the media can see that this Oscar will definitely be controversial, and controversy brings traffic, and everyone is thinking about which direction to report from. On the other hand, when Lemon took Eva to the banquet party, he met the crew of The Aviator again. As soon as the Oscars were over, Martin Scorsese maintained a polite smile, but no matter how you looked at him, you could feel a sense of anger. Lemon sighed in his heart, you will have to bear the temper in the future. Then, he chatted with Leo again for a while. He was in a good mood, perhaps because he won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, and he didn't expect to win the Oscar for Best Actor. Maybe he was fantasizing that maybe he would get what he wanted the next time he was nominated. After all, his foundation was very solid and his qualifications were almost enough. Of course, Lemon didn't say anything to attack his inexplicable confidence. Because theoretically speaking, if you don't win the nomination many times, you have to give it anyway. This is also the disadvantage of the Oscars. Qualifications speak. It's a pity that you have only beaten this boss for 1/3, Lemon thought. In the evening, when the banquet was halfway through, Lemon pulled Morgan Freeman and Hillary together again. The two of them kept playing with the Little Golden Men they won, and their mood has not calmed down until now. Several people drank and talked, and they all drank a lot, and each of them was a little drunk. Hillary was still sighing. Haha, this is my second one. It's like a dream. Although Morgan Freeman was not so excited, he was not unhappy to get the award, but he still considered Lemon's feelings. After all, in addition to the actor award, $1 Million Baby only won the best original score, which was better than nothing. I was nominated this time, maybe I will get the best director next time. Morgan Freeman said so. Lemon thought to himself, I don't think I need to win a director statuette to prove that I can make a movie. He shook his head. Seeing that director Martin was treated like this, he really didn't dare to get involved. As for whether to give it or not, he just didn't deliberately alienate himself or deliberately get close to him. After all, the network of people formed by these judges almost penetrated every aspect of Hollywood. Lemon clinked glasses again. Maybe. The group ate and drank until late, staggered into the car, and asked the driver to drive back. When he entered the room, it was Eva who helped him to get on the bed. She didn't drink much. He fell on the bed and vaguely saw a pair of small hands helping him to take off his clothes. Not long after, a gentle body leaned over. That night, Lemon was unusually tired for some reason. The next day, as expected, the Oscar selection this year caused a lot of criticism. Many people are questioning its fairness. Of course, this year's criticism is not the worst. Counting back, the controversies in 1994 and 1999 were even greater. In other words, the selection is something that can never completely satisfy everyone. As always, the Oscar jury played dead after presenting the awards. They didn't care what people outside would say. Chapter 511. Pitfalls. Subscriptions. Votes required. At 10 o'clock the next morning, Lemon finally got out of bed. Compared to the past, this time was a little late. Well, not too late. After getting dressed, he didn't see any familiar figures around him. After washing up, he went downstairs and saw Eva preparing breakfast. Get up. Eva called him, took out bread from the truck, and brought 2 bowls of oatmeal porridge. Lemon took a few bites, took the newspaper in his hand, and couldn't help laughing. It turned out that the newspaper reported on last night's Oscar ceremony in great detail, and the headlines were more fierce than the other. What about Martin Scorsese missed the Best Director award after all? Finding Neverland became the biggest winner, but it was not obvious before. Is there another inside story of the Oscars? What about the Oscars gala is star-studded, but the atmosphere is bad and The Aviator runs the whole time? Of course, there are also boasts, such as Hilary Swank becomes 2 Oscar actresses and Clint Eastwood is still in his moment and won the Best Actor award again. In Hollywood, where gossip and paparazzi are thriving, ordinary citizens are still quite enthusiastic about participating in discussions about celebrities, and the threshold for chasing stars is very low. Therefore, events like the Oscars award ceremony can attract countless spectators every year. After so many years of cultivation, the ratings are quite high, and they are often broadcast in Europe, South America and other regions. As a result, the highest ratings of the live broadcast that night once reached more than 52 million viewers, beating all programs in the same period. So, not surprisingly, the award winners selected by the jury naturally caused widespread dissemination. The popularity in the newspapers is nothing. Among them, the most concerned are naturally The Aviator and $1 Million Baby, who lost the best film in succession, as well as several award-winning actors. People in the industry are all very clear about director Martin's deeds, but it is not convenient for the audience to talk about them, otherwise it would be politically incorrect. As for Lemon, he can be perfunctorily dismissed by saying that he has adequate qualifications but lacks experience. Therefore, even if there are a lot of doubts, the Oscar jury will definitely not pay attention to it. But the content reported on the actors does not matter, which is also the intention of CAA and other agencies. Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood are both veteran actors, and they are highly recognized by the public and praised. Hilary and Cate Blanchett are also gradually growing up in Hollywood, and various adult stories were quickly dug up by the media. For example, Hilary was so poor that she almost lived on the streets, but she won the Oscar for Best Actress by playing a male role in Boys Don't Cry. There is also positive energy content about how Cate, like Hilary, came from a poor family and worked hard. In addition, there are some gossips. For example, Leo and Kate Winslet walked the red carpet together again, and they were so close that there were even rumors that they might be in a relationship. Let me just say that since Titanic, this kind of gossip has been common, but Leo and Winslet are both playful people, and at this time, she has a formal boyfriend, so it can only be said to be a gossip. In addition, Lyman is also the focus of media reports. First, his works have yielded a lot of rewards. Second, the popularity is just right. After all, he was photographed walking on the red carpet with Eva, and his words and actions were not concealed. In addition, it was the first time for them to show their affection in such a big occasion, which fed the singles a mouthful of dog food, especially Eva's male fans. There are affirmations and abuses. After all, which star does not have brainless fans? They really think that the actors they like cannot have men. Lyman ignored them all. For media people who know how to do news, riding on the popularity is just the first step. Later, more explosive news was dug out, pointing directly to the PR judges of Finding Neverland and their behind-the-scenes manipulation. These people don't care whether the Oscars are voted anonymously. The jury team consists of thousands of people, and there is no way to complete the PR. They just want to stir up momentum and maximize traffic. Of course, even if the audience agrees with this kind of groundless news, it can't do anything to the Oscars. They never thought about fairness and justice, but based on political considerations, the government will cover the bottom line. After hiding for a while, it will be nothing. In the mansion in Beverly Hills, Lyman is communicating with Warner about expanding the screening. Of course, it is not about expanding the screening of The Mist. The potential of this film is almost gone, and the upper limit is only $200 million in China, but operating $1 million baby, for movie stars, working so hard to operate the Oscars is for personal honor and to expand their status in the circle, but for film and television companies, it is a naked money transaction. Generally speaking, spending some money on PR is to get a better selling price, otherwise there won't be so many companies competing. Without profit, who dares to flatter the Oscar judges? Haven't you seen that Miramax makes a lot of money every year just by operating the Oscars? According to Warner, if you get the award the night before, you can contact overseas buyers the next day to cash in the profit. Overseas buyers are not stupid. Oscar has accumulated a lot of fame over the years. As long as you play an Oscar-winning work, there are few box office sales. Many young artists love Oscars and they are the target market. Therefore, after the Oscars, $1 Million Baby had not recovered its investment due to operational problems, but after selling some regional copyrights, it directly made a profit of more than $20 million, and this is not counting the offline income in the future. Moreover, theaters across North America also expanded the screening in accordance with the prior communication, from a small number of 10 to 20 theaters to more than 1,200 theaters. The box office figure of less than 300,000 a day has soared rapidly, almost more than 10 times. Moreover, theaters in various places feel that it is profitable, and the resources are very good, which makes up for the lack of early publicity and promotion. Oscar alone is worth millions of publicity costs. This is why various film and television companies are so active in operating the Oscars. This is a great business. Small investment, big output. No wonder Martin Scorsese was humiliated by the jury, but he still rushed to participate. If he could make tens of millions of dollars by being humiliated, he would not be unacceptable. People are realistic. If it is profitable, what does it matter if they bow their heads a little? After the phone call, thinking about his gains, Lyman was in a good mood, and then he quickly notified Lyman of Blue Butterfly Pictures to find a time to release The Dreamer while it was still hot. After all the busy work, it was almost noon. Eva called the hotel to send a table of wine and food. This kind of food delivery service is quite common in Beverly Hills. After all, most of the entertainment industry people live here, and few of them can cook. They are used to eating fast food. Lyman looked sideways at Eva as she arranged the dishes and suggested, let's hire a chef, preferably one who can cook Mexican and French food. After staying in the United States for a long time, he felt that Mexican food was quite in line with his appetite. As for Chinese food, it was either not authentic or the cuisine was not suitable for Eva. Eva shook her head and said, I sometimes travel around for filming, and you don't stay at home often. If we just hire a chef, it would be too wasteful. It would be better to ask the hotel to deliver the food. Lemon thought about it and thought, yes, if we hire a chef, we have to be responsible for the ingredients, kitchen utensils, etc., which is also very troublesome. Lemon walked to Eva, put his arm around her waist and said, "Why do I feel that you are becoming more and more like a top Hollywood actress? Is it my illusion?" Eva rolled her eyes at him and said, "What nonsense. I also have a team now, and I need to take care of my image." Image? Yes, Lemon nodded. He said that Eva's words and deeds now have changed a lot from when they first met. Thinking of this, Lemon kissed Eva. Well, the touch is still the same. It hasn't changed. Eva was arranging the tables and chairs and getting the tableau, so she didn't know what Lemon was thinking. After the kiss, her face was slightly red and she rolled her eyes at Lemon again. After a while, the two sat side by side and enjoyed lunch. Eva ate some salad and suddenly remembered something. She ran upstairs and took down a script. "What is this?" Lemon asked curiously. "Take a look first. This is a movie that my team recommended to me. The contract has been sent to me. The salary is $9 million. Eva was a little happy. By the way, her current reputation is ranked among the top actresses, but because she often appears in Lemon's works, she generally does not accept roles, but it is not completely rejected. At present, she still occasionally participates in the works of other directors, mainly in the works of Lemon Company. The former is generally a supporting role or a personal guest appearance. This time is different. The other party has a big background, and the assistant team is very agreeable to the role. Eva wants to listen to Lemon's opinion. After all, he is a director, and he looks at the problem more comprehensively, not just referring to the role. With Eva's expectant expression, Lemon opened the script and roughly scanned it. This kind of contract has a confidentiality agreement, and it is filed with the guild, so he is not afraid of others looking at it, as long as it is not leaked on a large scale. Only halfway through, Lemon suddenly laughed out loud. Chapter 512. I still choose Eva. Please subscribe and vote. Lemon is really funny. The reason for the laugh is that this is the general trend of the times. How could it be so accidental? Yes, Lemon is very familiar with this script. It was also the first blockbuster that Eva received in her previous life when she entered Hollywood, and it almost ruined her career. Afterwards, it was a failed work called Kingdom of China, which was silent for several years. It can be said that this is also an ambitious work that 20th Century Fox is aiming at this summer season, with high hopes, and the production team is quite powerful. The investment budget is as high as more than $130 million US, which is a first-class investment even in Hollywood, where blockbusters gather. The script is based on the true story of the Crusades to defend Jerusalem in 1187, which is well known in Europe and the United States, and naturally has the effect of adaptation. The behind-the-scenes team prepared for this for 3 months, and mobilized hundreds of props and costume personnel to participate in the design. In order to truly restore history, the horses and group actors have already started training, and a large-scale location has been established in Morocco. In addition, the director is Ridley Scott, who just used Gladiator, the same ancient epic theme, and gained both fame and fortune, and was nominated for the Oscar for Best Director. Moreover, his Alien series is also a box office guarantee, and he is quite good at shooting big scenes. No matter how you look at it, he is the most suitable director. In terms of actors, Jeremy Irons, Liam Neeson, Orlando Bloom, Edward Norton. They have acting skills and traffic, and the distribution is reasonable. Finally, there are veterans in the industry such as Simon Atherton and Janty Yetis who serve as assistant directors to assist in the review. Anyone feels very confident in this team. There is no doubt that 20th Century Fox also thought so, otherwise it would not be so generous, and it was sure that it would be profitable with such a high investment. Unfortunately, it lost a lot of money, and all the filming staff suffered a great loss. Director Ridley Scott went from being a first-line director, and everyone was vying for it. He had to rely on his old capital to make a comeback. It can be seen how unreliable this project is. Therefore, Lemon is a little happy now. After all, Eva took this role in her previous life, and now she is doing so well. How come she still met him again? but unexpectedly, the role of the heroine was originally suggested by Ridley. He said that, after watching her performance, he felt that it was very suitable and the image was very suitable. As for the investor 20th Century Fox, of course it would not refuse. I have put out so much money, and I'm still afraid that I can't afford an actor. Moreover, the more appealing the actor is, the lower the risk, so the film contract was sent. Why? What are you laughing at? Eva asked curiously. I think this role is not bad. There are a lot of scenes, and Fox also offered a very sincere salary, more than 9 million. Lemon sat in the chair calmly, listening to Eva's little excitement, and then thought that, if this movie didn't lose money, it would be really suitable for her to act. Just as Ridley invited her, Eva has a very classical charm, and acting with a group of veteran actors can also improve her performance. However, this is a bit. I don't know how many dirty things happened during the filming of this movie. Lemon put away the script and suddenly became serious. Reject it. It's very risky. Eva was a little unbelievable. According to her team's analysis, the box office is quite guaranteed. Ridley is going to fail this time. Lemon sighed. Ancient epic? Every movie counts, no matter how big the investment is, or how powerful the cast is. It naturally carries a certain amount of risk, because facts will prove that not many audiences will be satisfied with this subject matter. However, when Eva heard Lemon say this, she tried to argue a little. Really? If it's just for the role, I suggest you take it. Partnering with an award-winning actor like Edward Norton will be very good for you. But I have to point out in advance that this movie will lose money to a large extent. Compared with last year's Troy, it can be seen that the audience does not buy into any epic themes. Of course, Fox sincerely invited and offered a high salary. Few actresses in Hollywood are willing to refuse, but you have to know that this is your market value that has risen step by step. Only you can understand the hardship and fatigue in the process. If you fail once, you will go back to the past. Are you willing to take the risk? Eva shook her head. There are many examples like this in Hollywood. Even I, as a director, have to be careful to avoid failure. Okay, I will ask my assistant to decline. Of course it's best, if you think so. As March came, The Mist was still able to reap box office revenue overseas, and it was officially taken off the screen in North America as the biggest winner of the February schedule, although The Mist only earned $212.65 million from North America due to excessive publicity and promotion expenses. Compared with the investment, the box office is just a small profit, and even the profit is less than $20 million including overseas. But the success is that Blue Butterfly Pictures has taken the first step to open up the cinema channel, and it is a hit. This is enough. It was originally a sacrifice, and Lemon is very satisfied with the profit. On March 10th, Lemon, the crew and Blue Butterfly Pictures are preparing to hold a celebration party. It is unreasonable not to hold a movie like The Mist with good box office. Lemon just drove Eva to the hotel parking lot and was surrounded by a group of paparazzi. The Hilton security guards were quite capable and were very diligent in protecting them as they moved forward, but the paparazzi were not fooled and continued to shout, "Mr. Last, do you have a new filming plan? Can you reveal a little? Ms. Eva, I heard that you rejected Fox's invitation. Is there any special reason that prompted you to make this decision?" Director Lemon, what do you think of the several major works announced recently? Ms. Eva, Miss Eva. Most of the questions asked by these paparazzi were malicious and full of traps. If you were not careful to answer them, they might be taken out of context. Therefore, Lemon and Eva ignored them at all and had to hide in the banquet hall in an almost embarrassed manner under the protection of the security guards. These uncrowned kings are indeed difficult to deal with, and each one is more cunning than the other. The Hilton hotel manager stood at the door to greet them and said with a smile, "You two, the celebration banquet is on the 3rd floor, please." He waved his hand and took the initiative to lead the way. By the way, many people were invited to the celebration banquet this time, but most of them were independent filmmakers or producers with good connections in the circle. After all, after Blue Butterfly Pictures had the ability to distribute in North America, they also needed to deal with these people, either to cooperate or to win over, all for very basic film sources. So, this was actually a social cocktail party. Lyman used it to build connections, and now that the mist was about to be released, with this solid performance as a guarantee, there were many people interested in Blue Butterfly Pictures. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513 Popular. Please subscribe and vote. As soon as the champagne was opened, the celebration banquet officially began. After Lyman and other executives of Blue Butterfly Pictures greeted Lemon, they walked into the crowd to establish relationships and discuss cooperation. As a distribution company that has already established a foothold, it is still attractive to these independent filmmakers. At the scene, the party hall that accommodated hundreds of people was in good order, and everyone had their own topics to talk about. Look at how glorious he is. Do you think we have a chance to cooperate with him? In a corner of the banquet hall, two independent filmmakers were talking there, and one of them never took his eyes off Lemon. There should be a chance. The companion replied, Firefly Pictures has a North American distribution channel, and there is still a great demand for film sources. Oh, I really hope that I can always sell well at the box office like him. It's just a thought. The companion shook his head, getting rid of these unrealistic ideas, and suddenly said with some regret, Lemon is really popular. Look at those female stars' eyes are almost glued to him, and they don't shy away from the fact that he has a female companion. While the two of them were talking, Lemon was a little embarrassed. He felt that, as soon as he entered the banquet hall, he was instantly focused by several eyes. He also knew that as a director and a box office hit, he should be welcomed. After all, he himself represents opportunities. But, isn't this too open and above board? Yes, Anne Hathaway, with her wavy hair and oval face, like a princess, ran over to chat with Eva in front of her. Director Lemon, I haven't seen you since last time. Congratulations, the movie is a big hit. Lemon thought, the time I met you should be when Leon was filming Brokeback Mountain and I went to visit the set. What's the matter? You said it, as if we were having an affair. Thank you. After some politeness, Anne Hathaway took the initiative to leave again, inexplicable. But when she turned around, Eva leaned closer. Although she didn't say it clearly, her actions had betrayed her. What kind of jealousy was this? Even if Lemon wanted to hunt for beauty, he would not choose Anne Hathaway. She is beautiful, but she is too scheming. With the first person who approached him, there will be the second and the third. Some invited him to dance, some offered him a drink, and some hinted at cooperation, and hoped to join Firefly Pictures. In short, they were polite and courteous, and then Lyman came over with a few producers, who had a good relationship with him, and said they wanted to meet him. After more than an hour of welcoming and seeing off, the atmosphere gradually calmed down. After rejecting a few low-ranking actresses who dared to come forward and directly handed over their room cards, Lemon had the opportunity to sit on a chair beside him to rest. But not long after the rest, there was a commotion in the banquet hall. Why is Shirley Lansing here? Why is the head of Paramount running here? Could it be? Didn't they say that Lemon's relationship with her was strained? The appearance of Shirley Lansing immediately made the scene lively again. Speculations, suspicions, associations. For a while, even Lyman came over to ask, boss, why did she come here in person? What this means is that she came here because you invited her personally. But Lemon was confused. He was sure that the company had completely severed its relationship with Paramount and had not dealt with it for the past year. However, since they were here, they were welcome. So Lemon took Lyman and walked over to them. After a brief greeting, Shirley said, can we find a quiet place to chat? Okay, please follow me. Lemon walked into the compartment with her, still wondering what the old woman was doing. Unexpectedly, Shirley Lansing was also a little depressed about this. She came here in person because of the instructions of the chairman of the parent company, Sumner Redstone. The Viagra group behind Redstone and the Murdoch News Corporation hold shares in each other. Rupert has always wanted to make his production studio an excellent content supplier so that his media empire can be linked together and maximize profits. Among them, Fox TV has done a great job. In the past 10 years, it has spent more than $2 billion to buy TV stations in the UK, France and other regions. Together with its own TV network in North America, it has become the fourth largest TV multimedia group in the world. Its broadband services and telecommunications charges are all thriving. However, this guy's not good at film and television content, but he is good at newspapers. Gossip paper media such as The Sun and The Guardian are all under his control. But although his focus is different, he has always been thinking about the production of film and television content. After all, the media empire needs film and television achievements as a foundation. But the performance of the studio has been sluggish in the past 2 years. After Lyman stopped cooperating with Paramount, he continued to reap the box office of big selling movies. He even has a hand in shooting TV series, which is completely in line with Rupert's requirements for film and television. Then, Shirley Lansing came. Even if it would damage the company's prestige, she had to come. Paramount's financial situation is really not good, and it needs a big selling movie to pull back the decline. After the two sat down, Shirley smiled and said, "Congratulations, The Mist is a box office success." Haha, thank you. I don't know how many people have said this, but Lyman didn't hear any meaning. When we first started shooting Fury, I knew you were a very promising director. Miss Shirley, you are too polite. The success of a movie is the credit of everyone, not just the shooting and production. The two recalled the past and talked about a lot of things. Lyman realized that this guy came to seek cooperation. Anyway, Paramount has the channels and Firefly Pictures has the production ability. If only Warner is allowed to distribute the film, they also have their own projects to develop, so conflicts are inevitable. You said that, when the schedule conflicts, whose interests will be sacrificed? Well, I have to admit that Shirley's reason is indeed from Lyman's point of view. The dilemma of Blue Butterfly Pictures' lack of publicity resources cannot be solved in 1 or 2 years. The low cost of distribution makes the investment very uneconomical. If it were not for future planning, there would be no need to sacrifice the interests of the film. First-line blockbusters require more publicity than low-cost films. Blue Butterfly Pictures cannot afford this kind of publicity pressure. In the final analysis, it still has to share the cake with others. But why Paramount? Even if Warner is not good enough, there are still Universal and 20th Century Fox. Then, Shirley Lansing said that the number of Paramount's project development is far from enough, and it can allocate the most resources, which is a major advantage, and we have cooperated with each other, and are more familiar with each other, which is the second major advantage, and Paramount is willing to make concessions. In terms of publicity, offline channels can allow Blue Butterfly Pictures to participate. This concession is the third major advantage. Chapter 514. Don't seek death or you won't die. Please subscribe and vote. Shirley Lansing had prepared for this meeting. It must be said that the reasons and conditions she gave impressed Lyman. Why? Lyman had never thought of relying on any one studio. If he became dependent, how could he climb up? Moreover, as Shirley said, if there was a conflict in schedule, outsiders would never be as good as the family. Moreover, the resources of a studio were limited. Take Man Entertainment as an example. Firefly Pictures' annual output is at most 7 or 8 projects. If there are more, they can't be filmed, even if there is enough funding. As for Blue Butterfly Pictures, it's even worse. In a certain period of time, it can only release one movie in theaters. If there are more, they will inevitably be unable to take care of it. Take the Big Six as an example. Their annual output is basically more than 15 films, and they release even more films, but half of them will lose money. It is said that making a movie is like gambling. What you can do is to minimize the risk, not to ensure a return. In other words, if you send 10 works to theaters and half of them can make money, the performance is very good. This is the profit model of this industry. As long as one movie is a big hit, you can make a year's profit. Take the Twilight series as an example. Lionsgate has truly broken through the blockade of the Big Six and set foot in overseas distribution with these films. You can see the importance of high quality content to the film and television industry. Director Lyman, what do you think? As long as you come up with a project, we will split the investment in half, and Blue Butterfly Pictures will be responsible for the offline market. The theater promotion will not let you suffer any loss. The conditions will be absolutely equal to those of Warner. 60% of the copyright will belong to Firefly Pictures. How about it? Lyman was still hesitant. It was not that he would stop cooperating because the previous cooperation broke down. Business, even enemies can lower their heads to discuss the distribution of interests, not to mention that he and Paramount have not reached the point of mutual hostility. Moreover, it would be a pity if he did not seize this kind of goodwill from Paramount, but the problem was that he was thinking about what first-line projects he could come up with. Low-cost movies did not need to cooperate with the 6 majors. Lyman was attracted by the powerful publicity ability of Murdoch News Corporation, and it saved money. Lyman sighed and said, "I have no idea about the planning of the film project. I don't have a suitable project on hand." Shirley Lansing was a little unhappy and thought he was perfunctory. After all, Firefly Pictures' production output is not low. How come they can produce one after another in cooperation with Warner, but when it's their turn, there is not one? Which studio doesn't have a backlog of 17 or 18 film projects? They can only say whether they want to shoot or not, and whether it is suitable to shoot. But after all, Lyman has a very accurate vision of the market. If there are really suitable script projects submitted by independent filmmakers or screenwriters, he would have approved the projects long ago, so there would be no surplus. Of course, it is not easy to say this. Like other studios, they rely on analyzing the market and the audience of movie fans to decide whether to shoot a project. As for Firefly Pictures, Lyman can decide whether to invest after reading the script. Shirley Lansing said unwillingly, "Don't you have any ideas for shooting a project?" This person is so persistent that Lyman has to search his memory carefully. After a long time, he really thought of a work that needs a lot of publicity. He smiled and said, "We are definitely willing to cooperate with your company, but can we wait for a while?" Seeing that Lyman finally gave in and gave a clear answer, Shirley Lansing smiled again. Of course, Paramount is waiting for Mr. Lyman to come at any time. Well, we'll talk about the film project later. Let's go out to the cocktail party first. Although he said so, Lyman was still thinking about the cooperation script. About an hour later, the cocktail party was declared over. Many people left one after another, and Lyman and Lyman smiled and said goodbye. Since the Hilton Hotel often has entertainment industry people holding cocktail parties, there are paparazzi squatting nearby all year round. Shirley Lansing returned to the car and said to the assistant, "Another ambitious person has risen, and I don't know what the result will be." Being able to be an assistant to the executive of Paramount is naturally not a simple little role. The assistant obviously understands what his boss is sighing about. After all, the so-called ambitious people are still in Hollywood, and they should all be eager to stand at the top. But the top is full, so who should go down? Firefly Pictures is developing too fast. Why not suppress it? Why should we suppress it? Business is not about fighting. Don't say I don't want to. Even if we persuade the board of directors to put pressure on Firefly Pictures, if their project is profitable, will the other members not cooperate? Besides, Lyman is a smart man. You can see that every step he takes is very steady, and he doesn't eat alone. Who doesn't like a director who doesn't eat alone and knows how to cultivate relationships? Shirley Lansing is not stupid. She is just angry that Lyman's requirements are too high, and he is very decisive. After knowing that Paramount could not bring him the greatest benefits, he turned around and ran to Warner, but it does not mean that the two companies will cut off contact from then on. Otherwise, what are the benefits of Lyman not eating alone? Even if Warner doesn't like it, Lionsgate always has ambitions. It's just that the 6 majors haven't seen the intentions of this little lion. The next morning, the media really reported the news of the participants in the cocktail party. It is unknown who leaked to the media that Lyman and Shirley had a good conversation. For a time, many media were analyzing. The Hollywood Reporter said, perhaps the two companies are going to reconcile and shake hands. The Los Angeles Times said, if Firefly Pictures returns to Paramount's arms, then is there something fishy going on with Warner, and is it dissatisfied with the cooperation conditions? Is there any conflict in the distribution of interests? As a result, in the stock market that day, Paramount's stock rose by 3% directly. Isn't it normal for good news to boost the confidence of investment institutions? Of course, this made Warner Pictures sick. When several executives woke up, they saw such news. "You are so unkind. You hooked up with Paramount without saying a word." For this reason, Warner also held a small high-level meeting. Everyone discussed, but still didn't understand what Lyman and Paramount had reached. But one thing is clear, the cooperation between the two companies will definitely benefit Lyman. Cooperation is a win-win situation. Then, Barry Meir spoke up, meaning that there was no point in saying so much. Firefly Pictures was just like DreamWorks, and Warner had no control over who it cooperated with, who an independent studio cooperated with. Isn't that cooperation? Moreover, Lyman may not have completely boarded the big ship of Paramount. Maybe it was just a simple project development, and the meeting happened to be very pleasant, so it was decided. Besides, wasn't Lyman still involved in the Batman project? He would never have a bad relationship with Warner, so there was no need to think too much. In fact, it was useless to think too much. As Shirley Lansing analyzed, as long as Lyman still had the brains to continue the current situation and was willing to make concessions, he would never completely have a bad relationship with anyone. Chapter 515 Mr. and Mrs. Smith subscriptions. Votes required. Lyman was awakened by his biological clock. As soon as he opened his eyes, a few rays of sunlight came in through the large French windows, which made him lose all sleepiness. He dressed, washed, thought for a moment, and found a stack of manuscript paper on the table to continue writing the outline of the new play he had started last night. Regarding the cooperation with Paramount, it can still be promoted. Comparing with a memory in his mind, Lyman lowered his head to describe. The rustling sound of the pen touching the paper was like the sound of nature, but it startled the beauty on the bed. Eva tilted her head to look for a while, changed her clothes, walked to the balcony, and greeted lazily, "Good morning." "Morning, Eva." Eva leaned over to watch for a moment, then washed herself, and went downstairs to prepare breakfast. As for the script, Lyman said that the role in it was not suitable for her, so she didn't care. Gradually, the outline was gradually improved. Lyman sorted it out, and signed his name carefully, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yes, in the original time and space, this work should be produced by Summit Entertainment, later acquired by Lionsgate. Although it is not doing well now, it can barely be regarded as a second-tier production company. The starting point of the project should be the entry work written by the original screenwriter Simon Kinberg. After graduating from Columbia University Film School, this guy likes Hong Kong action movies very much, and later wrote the XXX series, so he is an action fan. Then after the first draft of the script was completed, Kinberg went to find producer Akiva Goldsman. Generally speaking, screenwriters with too little experience in the industry need help from nobles. Coincidentally, Goldsman and Kinberg got along very well, and the former won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay for A Beautiful Mind. It was considered a success. After reading the script, Goldsman told Kinberg that he was willing to help him promote this project and adapt it into a movie, so he asked him for the copyright for the adaptation. Without this step, Goldsman would not have the capital to intervene, and Kinberg, a newcomer, could do it. After getting the copyright, Goldsman used his network of contacts to find connections everywhere, and finally was selected by Summit Entertainment to invest and shoot together. Of course, in this life, they are not so fast. Lyman filed the script in advance. This is also because this movie is an original script, so there will be no conflict. And since meeting Shirley the day before, this guy has been promoting everywhere, openly, and secretly building momentum for this cooperation. Their family has huge media resources, which put Lyman in a passive position all of a sudden. Of course, Lyman also knew that Paramount leaked the news, and there were only two plans. One is to quickly finalize the matter, boost the confidence of investment institutions and shareholders, and relieve her pressure in the company. Anyway, if the studio has no results, it means that the positions of executives are not stable. The second is to promote and hype in advance, and also complete the instructions of the big boss Redstone. But this also forced Lyman to really push the project as soon as possible. After all, Firefly still wants to continue to grow, and it is impossible to have only one ideal partner. Even if it wants to join the Big Six, it cannot completely become enemies with the Big Six, or in other words, it can win over one faction and suppress another. The more friends it unites, the fewer enemies it will naturally have. This is called internal division. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is obviously a very suitable project to ease the relationship, because this movie needs a lot of publicity, but the worst thing about Blue Butterfly Pictures is publicity. Even if it is given, it can't do it. It's better to cooperate with Paramount. Just like DreamWorks also has a North American distribution channel, but the main masterpiece will still be handed over to the Big Six for distribution. Spielberg is also a wise man. With his own resources, he forced it to do it. It should have been a big hit at the box office, and it would be good to recover the cost. Naturally, Lyman also knew this very well. How much Blue Butterfly Pictures should eat, and Lyman has also explained to him that, whether willing or not, if the investment exceeds $70 million, most of the profits must be given to the Big Six. Only the 6 major companies that have laid out the right to speak in media channels early on can have enough publicity and promotion resources to release the market potential of a high investment and high risk work. Afterwards, Lyman took the script outline and asked his own screenwriter department to improve it, lines and so on. Lyman is not an authentic American and cannot communicate deeply in oral language. At the same time, he notified Paramount of the news of the project approval. The approval is to contact the Alliance Fire Foundation as a third-party guarantee, including accident insurance for the crew and completion guarantee. During this period, Lyman also discussed with Lyman how to use this cooperation to get access to Paramount's distribution channel network. Lyman also thought about this, and he said, "Don't we have to pay half of the publicity costs? Just transfer the team over to show cooperation, and I will go and find out the way myself," and there is a high possibility that Paramount will agree. Last year, the movies Paramount made combined made money, but compared to several competitors, the data is not so good. Do you think the shareholders would like the profits to decrease year by year? Paramount has been in a period of decline in the past few years. In the previous life, Shirley Lansing was blamed for this, so they obviously don't want to do it. The competition between the 6 majors is very intense. There is cooperation, but more often they are fighting against each other and killing each other when they find an opportunity. It stands to reason that Paramount has a lot of background and should be revitalized. The best publicity resources are matched with qualified production capabilities, so it shouldn't be at the bottom year after year. But Paramount lacked a key link after entering the new millennium, a series of movies. Yes, among the 6 major studios, Paramount has the worst ability to produce series movies. Universal and 20th Century Fox were the first to set a good example, and then Sony Columbia Spider-Man series emerged. Then Warner developed Harry Potter and The Matrix, and DC was the scriptwriter. Disney even produced Pirates of the Caribbean. Even if MGM was in decline, it still had the support of 007. It could make a movie from time to time and make a lot of profit by relying on its old capital. And what about Paramount? What does Paramount have? Mission Impossible? Without Tom Cruise, the Mission Impossible project could not be started unilaterally. In other words, series movies are the trump card that can relieve production pressure, but Paramount just didn't catch up with this trend. To be honest, even New Line, United Artists and Firefly Pictures can't compare. After all, making series movies has the lowest risk in the market. Benefits are superimposed. For example, if The Matrix was not a series product, how could it sell such a high box office with the regrettable script conception of the third part? Don't even think about it. As a result, everyone has their own trump cards, and they are not afraid when a fight breaks out. This makes Paramount embarrassed. So, in cooperating with Firefly Pictures, they may naturally make many concessions with a pinched nose. The distribution of benefits is not possible, and they can't refuse to participate in the promotion. After all, Blue Butterfly Pictures came here to establish a relationship with them under the banner of helping. Chapter 516. Harmonious Jokes. Please subscribe and vote. In the conference room of Paramount headquarters in Hollywood, Lyman had been here many times before, and he found a seat and sat down in a familiar manner. However, in the huge space, there were only a few people sitting there. Apart from Lemon, there were only Shirley Lansing and a senior executive from the marketing and production departments, so it was not very lively. Of course, there was no need for too many people to participate in the discussion. With Lemon's current reputation and achievements, the board of directors did not need to have any doubts, and naturally no other irrelevant people could interfere. Lemon sat in his seat, while the others were reading the script of the new play. After all, even if you believe in Lemon's strength, you still have to review the entire shooting plan, and the basis of the project is of course what kind of story to tell. Only by understanding the audience of the story can you estimate the risk of shooting, and decide the investment amount, and how much resources to tilt. As for the plot of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it is actually quite simple and old-fashioned. A couple who have been married for 5 or 6 years have been living a peaceful life. Then they have marriage crisis. They both think that marriage is a grave, so that even a psychologist cannot solve the gap between them. Then they are suddenly attacked by killers frequently. They escape danger many times, and finally realize that they have never known their lover's past. Is it cliché? It is cliché. There are at least 90 works about marriage crisis. But even so, Mr. and Mrs. Smith has played a little new idea from the past works. If there is no point to watch, Lemon would not bring out this work. That is, the identity settings of the two protagonists are quite surprising. Two retired legendary killers did not know each other's identity at the beginning and concealed it. Everyone, what do you think of this work? Does it need to be changed? Seeing that several people were thinking, after reading the script, Lemon took the initiative to mention his opinion on the script. It's quite interesting. Some scenes are very comedic just by imagining them. The head of the production department said first. Of course, the deep meaning of his words is whether the plot is a bit simple. I want to ask what is the main selling point of this work? The marketing director asked in confusion from his own standpoint. The essence of this script is still an action-themed story. The most representative action movies nowadays are Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan is still doing well in Hollywood, with a salary close to $20 million, which is more popular than most Hollywood stars, and spy action movies such as 007, The Bourne Supremacy and Mission Impossible. But for action themes, the story should be simplified, as long as it can be simplified, because the action scenes take up a lot of space and shots to describe, and the corresponding narrative shots have to give way. I believe you will understand this. Shirley Lansing nodded. Is it that when making a movie, you have to distinguish the main from the secondary? If there are more actions, there should be less narrative, otherwise it will be dragged out. This is also the reason why there are very few characters and scene changes in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. For this movie, I wanted to get closer to Jack Chang's humorous actions, so there are many deliberately arranged jokes and contrasts. For example, after sleeping in bed together for so long, the lover still hides his true identity. For example, the house has long been arranged as a weapons warehouse. Both of them thought that the other party would not know. As a result, when they quarreled, they took out weapons from the gaps in the toilet and kitchen storage compartments and shot each other. This strong sense of disharmony is the biggest selling point of this film. As for the story, it is all for the two people's killer identities, so it should be as simple as possible but logical. Lemon's requirement for the screenwriter is to give this disharmony feasibility from the explanation of events to the design of daily dialogue lines. If I really want to talk about the shortcomings, this story has no depth, it is not interesting, and it will pass by with a smile. The box office is unlikely to explode, but the profit risk is still very low, because action movies like comedies have a wide audience base, and they are deliberate for the sake of deliberateness, and the traces are large, which is also a problem, but in any case, it does not affect the overall development of the situation. Several people listened very seriously and were thoughtful. Shirley Lansing said, "So what do you think the box office of the movie will be? 100 million domestically, 300 million worldwide. Well, this is still a low estimate. The previous movie created a box office data of 470 million, but what if it was wrong? It's better to give a lower expected value and make arrangements when the time comes. Of course, 300 million worldwide is already a very good goal. At least, Paramount is very satisfied. After all, no movie had achieved such box office last year, which was embarrassing. Then, Lyman said, the shooting method of this movie is completely different from traditional action movies. The fighting is more sharp and cool. In short, it is to make the audience feel refreshed and funny. It is best to find a director who is suitable for this type of movie. Shirley Lansing heard another meaning from Lyman's words and quickly said, "Are you saying that you will not be the director of this movie? Well, I'm not suitable." This is of course nonsense, but with the audience popularity that Lyman has accumulated, he will not take such a popcorn work, the kind that he feels embarrassed to admit that it is his own. The identity setting of the male and female protagonists is not bad, and the rest of the plot is not as good as an action movie full of Jackie Chan style. If you replace Jackie Chan with a white man, he will not be rejected by Hollywood, and will definitely be more popular, not just an absolute action star in Southeast Asia. You know, even so, Jackie Chan relied on his madness to risk his life and break a world in Hollywood, an environment where discrimination is everywhere. Just like that, the plot is simple, and it seems that anyone can play it, but do you dare to risk your life? Those dangerous scenes, jumping off buildings, climbing airplanes, he really did it, not with a double, or camera cuts, but actually did it once, if not twice, dancing at the gates of hell again and again, which is why he has the status he has today. Many people have a bad impression of him, which can only be said to be due to personal morality, but there is nothing to criticize about his professional attitude. And his shit is really nothing in Hollywood. Of course, this does not mean that Lyman wanted Jackie Chan to play in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Appreciation is appreciation, but forget about the interests. Not to mention that his salary does not match his appeal. If he is rashly used, the Mr. and Mrs. Smith project may not be as popular as it was in the previous life. White people getting married is called political correctness, and you can change your skin color and do this. Even if you are black, it is not allowed. It is easy to arouse the audience's rebellious psychology. After all, no matter how the beacon country brags about freedom and equality, that kind of arrogant and naked social exclusion can still be seen everywhere. Chapter 517 Candidate List. Subscribe, vote. Since Lyman was unwilling to be the director of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Paramount naturally needed to find another one. And Lyman also made a request, saying that the director should have experience in shooting action-themed films. Secondly, it would be best if he did not stick to the old traditions and dared to innovate, taking the humorous comedy route, with the action only as a superficial representation. So, Shirley Lansing asked, "So do you have a suitable candidate? You wrote the script yourself, but did not shoot it, so you must have a plan." Lyman shook his head and asked, "Hasn't Paramount paid attention to directors who shoot this kind of subject matter?" The production director next to him thought about it and gave a suggestion. "Tony Gilroy or Brett Ratner, how about them?" Lyman was silent for a moment. He had been in the circle for so long, so of course he knew these two people, nodding acquaintances. The former is best known as the director of the fourth installment of the Jason Bourne series, and he was also one of the screenwriters of the first 3 installments. He is considered to have rich experience in the industry and is in the right field for the subject matter. However, he also made a movie before, but it flopped, so he had to be a screenwriter for so many years. The latter is the director of the hit action movie Rush Hour series, the work that made Jackie Chan a first-line star in Hollywood. His achievements are beyond doubt, but after leaving Jackie Chan, he couldn't produce any box office hits, which is also very uncertain. At this point, Lyman also mentioned, in addition to Doug Lyman, try to invite these 3 candidates. The original Mr. and Mrs. Smith was directed by Doug Lyman, but this director asked for a very high price because he had a falling out with Universal Studios over interests. Well, this director was the director of the first 3 The Bourne Supremacy films. After the profit distribution could not be negotiated, Universal was forced to shelve the Bourne Supremacy series and finally rebooted it, and the project was scrapped. Matt Damon also said that he would not participate in the film after the 3rd one. After the protagonist Bourne was forced to be replaced, almost the entire team was replaced from top to bottom, and it was inevitable that the subsequent results were worse than the previous one. Naturally, Lyman did not mention this candidate at the beginning because he was worried that Lyman was in the rising period of his career and would not be able to reach an agreement without bleeding a lot and giving up a large part of the project income. Who would have thought that the candidate given by Paramount was unreliable, so they could only contact each other first. Lyman, will he come? The production director asked in confusion. At present, he has not officially fallen out with Universal. The so-called third part of Jason Bourne is also being planned according to the plan revealed by Universal. We may not be able to get it. The sequel of a hit movie and a new project with unknown market. The risk of taking over is obvious at a glance. This is also the reason why Paramount made mistakes when thinking about the candidates. It's not that they don't know, but they think that he is unlikely to come. Otherwise, why mention the screenwriter of the series, but not the director? Of course, Paramount doesn't know that Universal and this person have a huge disagreement and will not cooperate at all for a while. If Universal doesn't say it, few people know it, except the person involved. Lyman knows that Universal said it would prepare to shoot Jason Bourne 3, but it took 2 years to reach an agreement. It's still early now, it's only 2005, and Universal is just suppressing the news. Fans have great expectations for the Jason Bourne project, and they can't say that the negotiations in the middle have not reached a consensus. After the director selection came to an end, Lyman took out the original audit documents and budget statements to discuss the investment share with the 3 people from Paramount. As previously calculated with Shirley Lansing, the 2 sides will invest in half, and 60% of the copyright will belong to Firefly Pictures. That is, the project's leading power is in Lyman's hands, and Paramount cannot start the project without consent. Well, a similar situation can be compared to the fact that the copyright of Mission Impossible is mostly in Tom Cruise's hands. In terms of publicity and distribution, a flying peripheral promotion will be handled by Blue Butterfly Pictures, and Paramount will be responsible for the theaters. Among them, according to the rules, 10% of the film's revenue in North America and 30% in overseas will be used as Paramount's distribution expenses, and the publicity expenses will be shared equally by the 2 companies. Why do the Big Six not care about the rise of those independent studios? As long as they need the Big Six to distribute, no matter what the risk is, the Big Six can invest a little money and reap the greatest profit. Take Mr. and Mrs. Smith as an example. Paramount invested the same amount as Firefly Pictures, but naturally received more than half of the film's revenue. This was because they wanted to befriend Lyman, and the project was provided by Firefly Pictures. If it was provided by Firefly Pictures or a small director, at least 60% or even 70% would be taken. Most of the risks were on outsiders, so why fear the rise of independent studios? This is like cutting leeks. If the leeks don't grow first, you won't get anything. After all, as long as these leeks don't think about turning over and becoming vegetable farmers, it's fine. Shirley Lansing nodded as she listened, occasionally frowning at the fact that Blue Butterfly Pictures assisted Paramount in the distribution, but she had to endure it. Then, Lyman continued, the cost of shooting Mr. and Mrs. Smith is about $80 million to $85 million. There are many scenes with guns, which account for a large proportion, so we won't invite any first-line movie stars. The risk is too great. And I can be the producer of the project and take charge of the overall situation. It was not until this time that Shirley Lansing breathed a sigh of relief. If Lyman only provided the script and did not participate in the shooting, she really didn't want to throw 30 or 40 million yuan into it. What kind of comedy action movie is it? And it's an original script. Does it have any popularity? If the quality of the film is not guaranteed, and the pressure of publicity and distribution is unknown, it is better to find a popular novel to adapt it. At least there is traffic and influence. Now that Lyman can participate in the production, there must be a certain guarantee. Having said that, there is no need to say more about the rest. After all, the crew director and actors still need to find suitable candidates. Today is just to determine the feasibility of the project. And according to Lyman's goal of 100 million in North America and 300 million worldwide, compared with the investment of more than 80 million in shooting, there must be a profit. Of course Paramount would not refuse, and immediately signed to co-production project agreements. One was about the ownership of copyright, the other was about the distribution of profits. After there were no objections to these two aspects, Shirley Lansing asked Lyman if he had any suggestions for the new actors. As for this, the original film starred Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and there was a huge scandal during the filming. Brad Pitt's cheating began to show signs during the filming of this film, and Angelina was a famous mistress and marriage destroyer. As a result, Pitt, who was already married, could not resist the temptation. Of course, Lyman didn't like either of them. Although he didn't deliberately suppress them, they were definitely unwilling to cooperate, so he casually said, "Notify the agency to audition and screen." Chapter 518, a gathering of blockbuster movies. Please subscribe and vote. With a project like Mr. and Mrs. Smith that was affirmed by Lyman and a formal contract signed smoothly, Paramount couldn't wait to show its strength and wash away the decline. It even thought about competing for this year's summer season. Time is a bit tight, but it is not impossible to do it. However, Lyman dispelled Shirley Lansing's unrealistic idea. Although the summer season has a large market capacity and the highest space for movie sales, this year is not as bad as last year, and the competition pressure is very high. Just what Lyman can foresee and hear from the industry. There are Warner's reboot masterpiece Batman Begins, 20th Century Fox's sequel trump card Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, DreamWorks Animation's strong work Madagascar, and Columbia and Paramount's comedy film The Longest Yard, not to mention many independent works that want to get a piece of the pie. Moreover, Lyman knew very well that none of the above mentioned movies that had been scheduled were easy to compete with. Although the competition between them was fierce, resulting in the box office of none of them fully releasing their potential, they were all big money makers, and it was difficult to lose money. Therefore, this year's summer season was definitely a year of competition among blockbusters. If you don't want Mr. and Mrs. Smith to bear too much market pressure, it's best to wait until Christmas to show it. If you don't know the potential of these movies, it's fine. If you know it, and still use it to collide with each other, wouldn't it be a lose-lose situation? After thinking for a long time, Lyman moved Paramount with emotion and reason to persuade it not to compete with them. After all, everyone is here to make money, why bother? Isn't it better to pick some soft persimmons to squeeze? Paramount naturally understands these principles, but the problem is that before the movie is shown, who knows how much market prospects there are. What if others all fail? Wouldn't it be a missed opportunity? Therefore, Paramount only believed half of Lyman's reasons. If the production cycle of the project was not clear, it would be just an idea to say that it would compete in the summer season. Before seeing the finished film, who dared to guarantee it? But the urgency was real. Paramount quickly contacted 3 candidate directors and announced that they would cast for the new film. Of course, the decision-making power had to be mutually agreed upon by both parties. The selection of candidates was just the beginning. After all, the investment was made by both parties. As for Lyman, his connections were not as deep as Paramount's, so he felt relieved to leave the contact and selection to them. After returning to Firefly Pictures to find Blake and ask him to follow up, he paid a little attention to the project, and it was over for him, so he didn't have to worry too much. James Wan was currently filming Dead Silence. He rented a studio in Warner Studios and tinkered with it for more than half a month. He didn't know how it was filming. Without running around, he had some free time. On March 7th, after Lyman handled some business at the company, he drove to the filming site. He was also the nominal producer of Dead Silence and one of the screenwriters. The plot about the villain's whitewashing was proposed by Lyman, and the addition of some characters was more reasonable. After arriving there, the first person Lyman met was Ray Wannell. He greeted politely and took Lyman to the set. At this moment, the crew was shooting a shot of the protagonist and Billy the doll in the same room, inexplicably flustered. 2 cameras, one close-up and one moving horizontally from the side, had been placed according to the pre-designed path. During the shooting, the lights were dimmed to simulate the night scene, and the protagonist Jamie, played by Ryan Quanton, was sitting on the bed. Director James Wan was talking to him about the play. The props team and the filming crew were busy preparing the scene, and had no time to care about the addition of one more person on the scene. Lyman watched from the side and saw that the filming props such as Billy the doll were placed by the staff in the corner diagonally opposite the bed. After taking a closer look, he couldn't help but think, this is too realistic. Even in broad daylight, it feels evil, as if the puppet's eyes can move. You know what? This prop is very expensive. In order to achieve the best shooting effect, James Wan ordered more than 30 different styles of dolls, and finally selected the most satisfactory one. This expenditure alone reached more than $200,000. However, Lyman felt that it was too realistic and quite disgusting, although the terrifying effect was already achieved. Lyman came to James Wan and asked, "Is the shooting going well?" James Wan smiled and said, "It's okay. If nothing unexpected happens, it will definitely not exceed the scheduled shooting plan, and there is no need to increase the budget." The two chatted casually for a few words, and the shot was ready. Act 34, Scene 3, Shot 2, Action. The script clerk hit the board, and Ryan Quanten closed his eyes immediately, but he couldn't fall asleep. As he tossed and turned, he accidentally made eye contact with the strange doll. Yes, eye contact. At this moment, he felt that the doll was laughing at him and staring at him. An inexplicable fear rose in his heart, just like he always felt, that someone was secretly watching him at night these 2 days, but he didn't understand the source of the gaze. Now, he knew. Ryan Quanten's performance was not outstanding, but he had good looks, was an Australian movie star, and was willing to work hard and be obedient. James Wan still admired him very much. Even if his acting skills were a little worse, it didn't matter anyway, as long as James Wan's works could match the scenes and show that kind of infectiousness. Acting skills or not were not the most important. Everyone was watching at the scene. Ryan Quanten completed the whole performance quite naturally. At least his expression was not stiff, and it could be seen that he was afraid and terrified. Cut. James Wan shouted, "Prepare for the next scene." With an order, all the staff began to get busy again. James Wan took Lyman to watch the replay again, and then said, "Do you want to take a doll back? I have made a lot of this style, and now most of its scenes have been filmed, so it is not needed, so do you want it?" Haha, no. Lyman refused decisively. To be honest, he really couldn't figure out why James Wan liked to shoot horror themes so much. Even after this guy took over the box office of Fast and Furious 7 in the future, he was willing to return to the low-cost horror field. You know, most directors always want to invest as much as possible. Now seeing this scene, I also heard from Ray Warner that James Wan liked to take photos with the doll Billy on the set, and he even took one to keep at home. I can only say that James Wan's hobby is really unique. No wonder the horror movies he shot are sought after by many fans. He himself is an addict, the kind that can't extricate himself. Forget it. Lyman thought he should not bother him. Chapter 519. Tony's plan. Subscriptions. Votes. March was still sluggish. In addition to being occasionally invited to some cocktail parties and accompanying Eva, Lyman began to take over the preparation work of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith crew. Since the meeting that day, Paramount has successively sent project cooperation intentions to the 3 directors, and those directors are basically willing. After all, which director does not want to be paired with the best studio? People always want to go higher. Although Paramount has not performed well in recent years, no matter what, a lean camel is bigger than a horse, and it is still more than one level stronger than most independent studios. Moreover, being able to direct a first-line production of more than $80 million, the temptation is not too great for several directors. Life is nothing more than the pursuit of fame and fortune, and as long as this project is successful, will there be a lack of fame and fortune? Therefore, after receiving the invitation, the 3 were very enthusiastic and went to Paramount headquarters every day to negotiate and promote cooperation. As for Shirley Lansing, she took the opportunity to examine the abilities, shooting ideas and even interests of several people. This is also as it should be. The results of the comparison of various aspects show that Doug Lyman is undoubtedly the best. After all, he has achievements in hand and often shoots action films, so he has a lot of experience. The second is Brett Ratner, who has a higher level of experience in the industry, so he is slightly inferior. The last one, of course, is Tony Gilroy. He is a screenwriter and has no great ability as a director. He has only made one movie, and his debut failed. But just for this reason, should we choose Doug Lyman? If things are so simple, it would be good. After all, the original version was shot by this guy, so it is more guaranteed. But the conditions proposed by this person not only made Paramount very considerate, but also made Lyman unwilling to agree. Doug Lyman said that the cumulative box office of the first and second parts of Jason Bourne is close to 500 million. The first part is 214 million. The second part is 289 million, which is showing an upward trend, and the fans have a good reputation. It is thought that the third part may break the 300 million mark. Therefore, if he takes over Mr. and Mrs. Smith now, he will need to take a big risk. After all, before the movie is made, no one can predict how the performance will be, so naturally the salary requirements are higher. How much is it? He began to give an example, saying that he is now negotiating with Universal and has secured a basic salary of $10 million plus 10% of the North American box office. If Paramount is willing, at least it must not be lower than this value. In short, Paramount's offer cannot be lower than Universal, otherwise it will not be accepted. When Lyman heard this, he sneered immediately. Of course, the specific news was that Shirley called and asked him what he thought. After all, this candidate was recommended by you, and after inspection, he was indeed capable. Then, Lyman replied, I only set the salary space for the director at less than 10 million, and it does not include the box office share. Otherwise, the project will be risky to shoot. How can I agree to it? Now, Lyman knows why Doug Lyman cut off contact with Universal after filming Jason Bourne, and why he did not act as a good director, and later he was more involved in the production behind the scenes to coerce resources. But he is not wrong to be ambitious. Is it wrong to use his own advantages to maximize the benefits? Unfortunately, this matter requires a willing fight and a willing fight. If Lyman had not been involved, the original Time and Space Summit Entertainment might have agreed to it, just like Paramount letting Firefly Pictures take advantage of it now. But Lyman was involved, so naturally he was unwilling to share so much profit with the director, and the script was also planned by himself. You are just a filming machine, and maybe Lyman will also check the post-editing. Why do you get so much? Of course, if Doug Lyman's talent is like Nolan and James Wan, he would have given it to win people's hearts. But the problem is that he can't compare with her. Why did he ask for so many things? He also said that he wanted Nicole Kidman for the female lead. The first choice for the original female lead was Nicole, and it was also proposed by director Doug Lyman. However, the investors intervened, and the male lead Brad Pitt tactfully expressed that he didn't want to act with Nicole Kidman, so he gave up. In this regard, Lyman agrees with Pitt. After all, Nicole Kidman is a beautiful woman, but she is not popular with the public because she always speaks badly of her ex-husband Tom Cruise in public. It is disgusting after a long time. She always mentions this thing to attract traffic, and the negative impact comes. Moreover, Nicole Kidman has never played a big female lead and sold well at the box office. She has done well in art films, but she has not shown any box office appeal. Therefore, Doug Lyman, who likes to make demands, was naturally abandoned by Lyman and Paramount. One day, in a private club, several people were sitting and chatting. During the banquet, there were delicious food and good wine, and the atmosphere was very interesting. If Lyman could be there, let's not talk about the other people sitting with him, but there were two people who knew each other. The first one was of medium build, quite old, and had a circle of beard. He was Tony Gilroy, the candidate director of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who was 49 years old this year. And next to him was the executive of Paramount Production Department who proposed the director candidate at the small meeting that day. It seems that these two people are also familiar with each other. Of course, it is normal for a director to know the executives of the studio. After all, they need to deal with each other frequently and will always meet. Therefore, when this executive proposed that his friend take the director's post that day, he was naturally selfish. But it was impossible to be completely selfish. If Tony was not suitable for this project, even if he asked, he would inevitably be rejected. If he was not rejected, and the movie failed, he would also be affected, and need to take the blame. Therefore, the friendship between friends is not so trustworthy. Recommending him must have been approved first. Everyone ate and drank, and the atmosphere was very good. Tony asked about the new project, wanting to know how likely it was that he would be the director. The man replied, "I met with the CEO today, and at the meeting, she complained that Lyman was too demanding." Putting down the glass, he smiled at Tony and said, "I guess he's out." Tony asked, "What do you mean by that?" Just because of a few words from the boss, he concluded that Paramount had given up the candidate who posed the greatest threat to him. That's not the case, right? Negotiations can't be decided in one go. The man shook his head. "Where? Don't you know that this project is not based on Paramount? I heard from Shirley Lansing that Lyman, the big boss of Firefly Pictures, also rejected the conditions proposed by Lyman, so I concluded that he had no chance." Tony Gilroy was thoughtful when he heard this. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520 Warner Invitation. Please subscribe and vote. Among the 3 candidate directors, Tony thought he had the least competitive edge. After all, the 2 above had achievements, but he had only shown his talent in screenwriting. Not just the scripts of the Jason Bourne series, he had participated in writing many more scripts. After all, he had been in Hollywood for more than 20 years, and he still had connections, and often got job opportunities. Of course, the embarrassing thing was that his goal was to gain something in directing, not editing scripts, but he had already failed once, and it was difficult to get a second chance to direct in the fiercely competitive Hollywood. After all, he just kept writing scripts, but in his heart, he definitely still wanted to be a director. Otherwise, he would not have worked hard to manage the network within the studio. Yes, even if Paramount's production executives didn't help, he still had friends at Universal and 20th Century Fox. No, the opportunity to work hard has come. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a collaboration between Firefly Pictures and Paramount, is exactly the action genre that he is good at. In the past, he often learned from Lyman how to arrange the filming of The Bourne Supremacy. After reading the script, when he told Shirley Lansing about his filming ideas, he easily passed the test and got affirmation. But the problem is, everyone can talk about ideas. In this regard, he does not have a big advantage, and it is still difficult for him to compete with the 2 candidates. But Lyman may have been eliminated, and Tony was happy. Someone next to him asked, "So in this case, the director position has not yet been assigned?" The supervisor took over the topic and said, "Well, we may need to continue to negotiate on this aspect." Another person said, "Then, Tony, you should try harder. Now you have a great chance." Tony smiled bitterly. "Isn't there someone above me? There are no outsiders here. I'll give you an idea," the supervisor said. "Instead of going the Paramount route, it's better to try to convince Lyman." Although Shirley Lansing used to complain about him, she trusts him very much. Even if the 2 companies cooperate, listen to his advice. Tony thought to himself, if I make money by making movies, it will definitely be the same. Of course, I thought so, but I couldn't say it so I nodded to show that I agreed with this suggestion. But how should I convince Lyman? This is also a problem. Thinking like this, after everyone went their separate ways, Tony was still thinking about it when he returned home. In terms of qualifications, the 2 are not at the same level at all, but in terms of age, there is a place where Lyman is better. Thinking about this, it's a bit sad. So, how should I convince him? While Tony was thinking about this, Lyman, the person who wanted to persuade him to take the position of the first-line production director of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, was discussing with Joseph about the financial issues of Firefly Pictures. During this period, part of the income from the Mr. Million Dollar Baby was remitted to the company's account, but the financial situation of Firefly Pictures was still very bad. It took more than 2 years of accumulated wealth to obtain the North American distribution channel and business channel, and the loan was repaid. After finally relying on the excellent TV series production to make some progress, it seized the opportunity to enter the special effects industry. Not only did it not save money, but it also mortgaged $200 million with the project. Now the TV series is still being filmed, and this expense is still a burden. Once the profit share is obtained, it is almost digested internally by the company first, such as paying wages and bonuses. Therefore, even if the company's operating conditions are improving, and the profit-making means are becoming more and more perfect, what it gets in return is almost no working capital and high debts. But hesitating when it's time to develop vigorously is not good. Lyman knows that he will have only 2 years to accumulate strength. In the future, capital will enter Hollywood more vigorously than now. By then, if Firefly Pictures wants to rise, the difficulty will rise to another level. In the office, Lyman signed a payment of $10 million and handed it to the company's financial department, asking them to implement it as soon as possible, and then said to Joseph, "In this way, you can use the equity of Firefly Pictures as collateral to borrow money from the bank and give it to Blue Butterfly Pictures to prepare for the release of Daydreamer. It can also ease the financial pressure. In the current situation, if the company has any good projects, there is no money to shoot them. In fact, there is no need to be so urgent. Wait until the second half of the year, when the funds from the offline market are received. There will be no big problem." Joseph persuaded, "You don't have to mortgage the company's high quality assets. But I can't wait anymore. Do you have a new project?" Lyman shrugged, "I have some ideas for filming." "Okay, then take out a loan." The project that Lyman is optimistic about is still very profitable, and he will definitely borrow money to shoot it. Moreover, it has been borrowed many times. This method of using other people's money to promote the rapid development of the company is also addictive. Even if I think that most of the income from the next movie production will be used to repay the debt, it doesn't matter if I borrow it. Anyway, as long as the company can maintain this kind of profit growth in production and distribution business, the debt owed is not difficult to repay. You know, the debt owed by the acquisition of Blue Butterfly Pictures last year has only been repaid for more than $20 million. When the offline income of $1 Million Baby arrives, it can be repaid. After Joseph left, Lyman continued to deal with some trivial matters. After a while, Ryan knocked on the door and came in. By the way, the first season of The Walking Dead he produced has been filmed, and the second season will not be filmed until September or October this year. In addition, on the last day of the first season, the ratings hit a new high, reaching more than 37 million. On average, more than 35 million users followed the show, which made HBO employees work with a smile on their faces. "How have you been lately?" "I just went out to relax for a few days," Ryan continued, "but Barry Meir just called and wanted to invite you to meet." "Why didn't he call me directly?" "How would I know? Maybe it's because of Paramount?" "Well, it seems that Warner is a little bit irritated, but I don't know how big this gap is." But Lyman didn't care much. He knew that none of these business people would act according to their temperament. Only interests are eternal. Of course, with Ryan's reminder, Lyman had to call in person. "Mr. Meir, haha, I've been wanting to talk to you for some time." Okay, I'll definitely come, of course. See you later." After hanging up the phone, Lyman and Ryan looked at each other. "What do you mean? What else can I say? Let's talk about it when we meet." Lyman shook his head. "Fortunately, I'm still prepared. I think Warner will not refuse to continue the cooperation. Then, the work of the second season of Prison Break will be handed over to you. Remember to coordinate with various investors. You really know how to find things for me to do. The more capable you are, the more work you should do." Chapter 521, Never Satisfied. Please subscribe and vote. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a restaurant near Sunset Boulevard. Along the way, Lyman was thinking about something, but when he really arrived at the meeting place, he saw Barry Meir waiting there. "Sorry, Mr. Meir, there was a traffic jam on the road, so I was a little late." "It's okay," Barry Meir smiled. "I just got here." Lyman exchanged a few pleasantries and sat down opposite Barry Meir and heard him say, "What do you want to eat?" "One pasta will be fine." The waiter next to him heard it and hurried to the kitchen to greet him. At this time, Barry Meir suddenly changed the subject. "I heard that Firefly Pictures has found Paramount to cooperate with its new project?" "Yeah, it was indeed about this." "Why? Can't the new project cooperate with Warner?" Berry still smiled, as if he was just curious about this question. Of course, since Lemon had done so, he did not intend to deny anything and replied easily, "Mr. Mayor, this is just a very ordinary cooperation. Paramount is very sincere. Warner is also sincere. The conditions we offer are already first class, aren't they?" Berry said slowly, "The publicity and distribution costs of New York trip are almost close to the production costs. Warner paid more than $70 million US, but we only took less than half of the film's profits, and even the offline copyright market only takes 30%. Is there any problem with such a division of interests? I think the net worth of the top directors in Hollywood will not be much higher than this." Berry's tone was already full of questions that could not be hidden. When he first heard the news last week, he seemed so calm on the surface, but in fact he had been suppressing his anger. Firefly Pictures is not a subsidiary of Warner. How to operate? Does it need to be approved by Warner? Lemon was still very relaxed, not frightened by Berry's outburst. If the cooperation is not a win-win situation, I guess the cooperation will not continue. You only talk about how much you paid, but you don't say that New York trip has brought Warner more than $75 million in revenue, and the long-term copyright operation has not yet ended, so the return is doubled. Most films may not have such a profit. Moreover, today we just sit down and talk. It's meaningless to talk about other things. What do you want to say?" Berry quickly calmed down. He was just dissatisfied with Lemon's sudden change of mind and got together with Paramount, but he didn't want to break the relationship. Of course, Lemon didn't want to make things too awkward, which would not benefit him at all. "Mr. Mayor, I'm not cooperating with Paramount to get better conditions from Warner. In fact, I have always believed that bringing enough profits to all stakeholders is the most direct truth of Hollywood. Theaters, distribution, and production. None of these three parties can be missing. Moreover, someone is right that Warner's production capacity is not lacking, and the tilt of internal resources is always worrying." Lemon said sincerely, "If Warner wants to release 2 movies in the summer season, one is its own and the other is a cooperation with other studios, can Warner really treat them equally?" Berry was silent for a moment and shook his head silently. He disdained to lie in this regard. Even if there was a difference in treatment, Warner was still Warner. But since Paramount had persuaded Lemon to cooperate, what he had to think about now was how to get as much new benefits as possible. After things were irreversible, any emotional actions were useless. Does Firefly Pictures have any plans to launch a project? Yes, that's what I just wanted to talk about. So, will it be handed over to Warner for distribution? I personally am very happy to do so, but the script still needs some time to be perfected. In the end, Berry came with anger and left with satisfaction. This made Lemon feel that it was too wise not to hand over the film distribution business to a single film company. As the saying goes, if you give benefits to one person alone, it will seem natural after a long time. If you don't give it, it will be fine. If you can't maintain a good relationship, and you will be inexplicably hostile. Paramount is like this, and it seems that Warner is the same. Lemon's behavior is obviously just to make choices that are in line with his own maximum benefits, but Berry will feel unhappy. He also understands why there are so many breakups and reunions in Hollywood, and why friends often sue each other the moment they get together. It's really because the distribution companies are used to being domineering, which once again reminds Lemon of the correctness of channel zucking. Lemon returned home, calmed down, and planned to study the subject of the works he wanted to shoot. Of course, it must involve the participation of digital visual effects work, because after Firefly Pictures took over Digital Domain, the company's business situation has improved a lot. At least it will not be unable to pay wages and lay off employees, but in the long run, it is still not optimistic. After all, such a special effects company must occupy a larger share of the special effects business market. Regardless of how much money it makes first, it should be self-sufficient and not become a burden. But now, the special effects field is full of heroes, and Digital Domain is not the strongest party. Lemon had to learn from Cameron and find some work for his own special effects company. In this way, he can experiment with technology and make some profits. It is a good thing. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Therefore, Lemon had long thought about shooting more CG special effects movies. However, what works are suitable for the current digital field. Anyway, he doesn't have to worry about publicity and promotion. Although Blue Butterfly Pictures is still weak, its relationship with Warner and Paramount is still good. Just thinking about it, the phone rang suddenly. Lemon picked up the phone, and it was Shirley Lansing who came to him to ask about the director of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith project. Originally, one of them was excluded, and there was no need to be so entangled in choosing one of the two. However, the two directors did not leave a deep impression on Lemon. It seemed that both of them were good, but neither of them was good. But this matter could not be delayed after all. Lemon and Shirley Lansing talked for a while, and decided to meet with the two to discuss, and finally determine the candidate. In any case, with his own personal supervision of shooting and post-editing, the quality will not be that bad. Lemon thought so, and he was still quite confident. After all, the plot of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is not complicated, and there is nothing fancy about the shooting. The main line shots that are directly narrated are not difficult to dispatch. Furthermore, both director candidates have rich experience in the industry, so there is nothing they cannot handle. The only concern is that they may mix their personal opinions into the film, which may not be good. Chapter 522 The Mentality of Wanting to Do Things. Please subscribe and vote. The next morning, Lemon dressed neatly and drove to the Paramount headquarters in Hollywood. When he arrived, he was greeted by an old acquaintance, the female assistant next to Shirley Lansing. Her name seemed to be Sharon or something, and she looked quite intellectual. I forgot who she was for a moment. Lemon smiled and nodded at her, avoiding the embarrassment of not being able to call her name, but she didn't notice it, and quickly went to Shirley Lansing's private office to report. Fu came out again and politely invited Lemon in. Lemon walked in quickly, looked up, and saw Shirley Lansing sitting behind the boss chair and talking, with Tony and Ratner sitting on the sofa next to them. When Shirley Lansing saw Lemon, she waved her hand and exchanged a few polite words, then let them chat, and she had a meeting to attend, so she left for a while. In fact, there was really nothing to talk about. The salary conditions of the two directors were within Lemon's acceptable range. Tony's asking price was lower, only $3 million for the basic salary, and tiered box office incentives. Ratner's basic salary was $8 million, and the tiered box office incentives were not much different. Anyway, it would not exceed the budget of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. However, it seems that Tony is more concerned about this project, and has a more enthusiastic attitude. I think he really needs this opportunity more than Blake Ratner. Then, Lemon talked to the two of them separately about their intentions. The first one was Ratner, who was quite decent and Lemon thought was reliable. The second one was Tony. After waiting alone for more than half an hour, I didn't know how the talk went, and whether I still had a chance. Tony thought anxiously. It's your turn. A staff member reminded him. Oh, thank you. Tony threw away unnecessary thoughts, tightly grasped the results of the preparations in the past few days, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. Hello, Mr. Last. Lemon looked over and saw a wrinkled, aging face with a hint of flattery in his eyes. Ratner didn't have such an expression, which was something Lemon could easily compare. After all, for most directors, Lemon's rise was a little too fast, and many people inexplicably regarded themselves as seniors. Just now, Ratner was like this when facing Lemon. In this comparison, Tony seemed to be a man who knew the current situation very well. At least he knew not to put on airs when fighting for opportunities. Hello, Director Tony, please sit down first. Okay, thank you. Tony sat on the sofa with half of his buttocks, his back straight, like a student who was listening attentively. However, this student was already 49 years old, 21 years older than Lemon, almost 2 years older. However, this kind of respect, rather than taking it for granted, was very useful to Lemon. Inevitably, he was much warmer to him. Can we talk about the script? Okay. Tony coughed and said, I heard that this script was designed by you, Mr. Last. It sounds very interesting, and I'm sure the audience will buy it. Since the day Paramount invited me, I've read it dozens of times. To be honest, I really want to take over the director's job, but Ms. Shirley told me that there are several other competitors for the project. I also know that I seem to have the least filming experience, but I don't think it's a big gap. So, Mr. Last, are you willing to give me this opportunity? It was a pity that Lemon couldn't make a decision after all the flattery and flattery. Explain your filming ideas and your understanding of the plot. Lemon smiled. Compared to those traditional action movies that are rigid and not fancy, or those works that rely on violence, blood, and the protagonist killing people to achieve a sense of excitement, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is undoubtedly completely different. In other words, it is just a movie with action skin, but it is actually a comedy. The unique identities of the two main characters in the script are the best contrast, and the plot revolves around the identities of the killers. Although it is not complicated, it has a strong appeal. Think about it, the composition of an ordinary family and the combination of two top killers as a couple, it itself attracts the audience to watch, which means that half of the success is already achieved. Mr. Last, I'm very confident that I can shoot a similar film effect. As he spoke, Tony couldn't help but show his determination. After he finished speaking, he seemed to feel that it was not enough and took out a thick stack of information from the backpack he carried with him. Mr. Last, look, this is a part of the scene shot script I imagined. You can take a look. Sure enough, all the flattery he had done before was not as important as the preparation of this stack of storyboards. This is also the method that Tony thought about for a long time, after meeting with the executives of Paramount production department on how to impress Lemon and stand out. I can't compete in terms of qualifications, so I will compete in terms of who is more sincere. Obviously, this trick worked. Lemon carefully read through each storyboard manuscript and understood Tony's series of ideas for the movie. Perhaps it is time to make a decision. Compared with Ratner, Tony not only has a better attitude, but also is more willing to work hard. Although he has failed once, his professional level as a director is not bad. After more than 20 years in the industry, he has served as a screenwriter or assistant director of many crews. He is experienced enough to overcome the hurdle of failure. Lemon lowered his head and carefully compared all aspects. Tony also understood that the most critical moment had come, and his breathing became rapid. Agree, Tony shouted in his heart. He really needs a chance. In such a realistic circle, he doesn't want to continue to hang around in mediocrity. He also wants to be glorious, and he also wants to be sought after and affirmed by fans. As a director, he had imagined similar scenes countless times. Now, the most likely chance to succeed has come, and it is in the hands of Lemon, who is sitting opposite him and looking down at the storyboard draft. To be honest, he doesn't think the script of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is that good, and the previous flattery was just flattery. As the most senior screenwriter, he deeply understands that the value of a script is not the content, but the people. If it weren't for Lemon, no one would pay attention to similar old-fashioned plots. Just like every studio's script library is full of countless plot ideas. But so what? Is there anyone investing? If not, who knows what the effect will be. Although I don't think the plot of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is so good, Lemon's vision has been proven to be good enough. He is optimistic, which means opportunity. Tony read the script many times, racking his brains to figure out what kind of shooting effect Lemon wants, and carefully preparing the storyboard, not all for the purpose of getting the project. To this end, he can set standard answers for every possible question. Chapter 523, Statement, Subscriptions, Votes. In the spacious office, Lemon did not notice Tony Gilroy's uneasiness. He just looked down and read the storyboard draft of the script carefully, wondering if the style was suitable. After more than half an hour of reading and asking, Lemon looked up and said, "Director Gilroy, I will recommend you to Ms. Shirley. I have to say that you are well prepared. This is a little reward you deserve for your hard work, but whether it will succeed or not will take a while." After saying that, without paying attention to what Tony on the other side would think, Lemon just turned around and picked up the phone and roughly communicated his thoughts on the two interviews to Shirley Lansing. There is no doubt that Tony is more inclined to be the director of the project. Ratner may also be okay, but after all, he is not good at watching, so there is no need to strongly recommend him. And Shirley Lansing, of course, will not reject the candidate Lemon proposed. As the production executive of Paramount said, Shirley Lansing is not very proficient in directing and producing business, so why doesn't she listen to Lemon? After all, no matter from which aspect, Lemon has proven his ability. After hanging up the phone, Lemon smiled at Tony. "It's a pleasure to work with you." Tony's back bent involuntarily, his whole body relaxed, and his face showed an excitement that was difficult to conceal, but he still had reason. Although he understood that Lemon's words basically meant that the film would be handed over to him, Lemon was still the producer of the project. In terms of status, qualifications, and even the right to speak in the crew, he easily crushed him. So, he quickly expressed his position. "Mr. Last, I promise to shoot with all my heart and not delay any of your plans. Basically, I will listen to you." Lemon naturally understood this meaning. After all, he would not recommend a director who didn't get along with him, or didn't listen to advice, and liked to mix in private goods. Wasn't the original director Doug Lyman abandoned for this reason? It's of course the best thing for Tony to think so. He is indeed a smart man. No wonder he was able to cooperate with Universal and take over the Jason Bourne business later. You know, even if the lead actor of the Bourne Supremacy was changed, the risk increased, but it was still a hit sequel, and such an opportunity was rare for a failed director. In this case, Lemon nodded and said, "Do you have any choice for the actors of Mr. and Mrs. Smith?" Tony thought Lemon was still testing him, and he reiterated, "No, it's up to you to choose. Choosing actors is the power of the producer." Besides, even if Lemon didn't interfere, Paramount would definitely intervene, so it wouldn't be his turn as a small director. And if he could really choose, he would definitely become a big director, and he would have a certain qualification. There's no need to say anything, just report his name, right? However, Lemon told him that he could participate in the audition and selection, and then submit the list and evaluation together, which gave him some power to speak. After all, Lemon recognized the crew very much, and the director's participation could not be low, otherwise there would be no authority at all, and how could he get the crew to cooperate in the filming? Just like that, after Tony got Lemon's support, he could hardly suppress his joy, and wanted to vent it out, preferably to share his joy with his friends in the circle. "Mr. Last, thank you for your help. Please rest assured that I will definitely produce a work that will satisfy you." Seeing the middle-aged man in front of him so sensible, Lemon thought, even if he doesn't have extraordinary directing talent, maybe he can pull him into the cooperative director studio system of Firefly Pictures. He is very smooth in dealing with people. The key to such a director is to be willing to listen. Although his directing ability is a little lacking, he is a good screenwriter and is not without training value. Of course, all this has to wait until the development of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith project is not wrong. If you are only smooth and have Lemon to help control everything, but you are still a jack of all trades, then forget it. Then, I will take you to discuss the director contract with Paramount. After signing the contract, you will start to promote the project preparation work. I hope this project can catch up with this year's Christmas season. Yeah. Tony nodded continuously. Afterwards, Tony quickly became the project director of Mr. and Mrs. Smith with the affirmation of Paramount and Firefly. Tony had no objection to the basic salary of $3 million and some encouraging box office bonuses in the contract, and signed it without thinking. As for the box office share, he would not even mention it. Tony knew what to fight for, and what not to fight for. After more than 20 years in Hollywood, this grasp is the foundation of his life. Anyway, as long as Mr. and Mrs. Smith can succeed, he can completely get rid of the previous difficulties and enter a new life. Don't think that Hollywood is the place where you can get fame and fortune the most. Countless unknown actors, screenwriters, and directors will suddenly rise because of the success of a certain movie, gaining money, status, and even the love of fans and audiences in the pursuit of various capitals. But in fact, this is only a low probability event after all. It is awesome to stand out among hundreds of thousands of people, and it requires a lot of luck. Most practitioners, if they don't have the support of noble people, are struggling to gain experience and sinking in one circle after another. The lower-rate actors have their own circles, the third-rate actors have their own circles, and the second-rate first-rate stars and superstars are all huge barriers. Resources have always been distributed from top to bottom. Take the screenwriter industry as an example. Many studios want to adapt scripts or set up new projects, and they all look for successful veteran screenwriters to take charge. Newcomers can only rely on these big and small hills to get a chance to work. Even if the first-rate screenwriters in the industry want to break into the director circle or the producer circle rashly, they must break through one threshold after another. Even if they break through, they still have to polish their qualifications and look forward to slowly climbing up. The whole process highlights a difficult one. Therefore, the biggest shortcut here is either to have someone above you, or to be the son of God, to be extremely lucky, and to pick up any project, and it will be a box office hit. Once such people succeed, they may not necessarily keep it up. Slowly, they may give up struggling, and leave a short-lived mark in Hollywood. On March 20th, while the Mr. and Mrs. Smith project was still progressing steadily, Million Dollar Baby was officially released, with a global box office of more than 120 million, more than 10 million more than the original version, perhaps because of the reputation accumulated by Lyman's previous films. It was also at this time that Blue Butterfly Pictures officially released its second feature film, The Daydreamer. Chapter 524, The Journey of the Unlucky Guy. Subscriptions, tickets. Lyman did not hold any premiere for Daydreamer. He just asked Blue Butterfly Pictures to contact the theaters for a long time in advance and set a strategy to take over the popularity of Million Dollar Baby for long-term distribution. It was not until the week before the release that he spent a lot of money on advertising in some newspapers, magazines and TV stations, and also cooperated with the pre-release publicity on the internet. After a week of high-intensity media bombardment, Daydreamer was released in North American theaters as scheduled, but only less than 1,000 screens were acquired. After all, the box office potential of the film is limited. If the publicity is too strong, it will inevitably increase the revenue pressure. If the money that could have been made can't be recovered, it will be a loss. That afternoon, Bella walked into a theater not far from home, bought the ticket smoothly, and found a seat to sit down. Until the main film started, Bella observed for a long time, and found that the attendance rate of Lyman's film was still very high, estimated to have reached 90%. Of course, this is only the first day, and it is abnormal if the attendance rate is not high. Finally, the familiar opening animation passed by, and Bella attracted her sight and focused on the big screen. In the past few years, whether it was for work or spiritual entertainment, she would never miss Lyman's works. After all, watching an excellent movie is quite a pleasant thing. The beginning of the film is a poor guy who was blamed by his boss. The reason was just that the newspaper's performance was not good, and the boss was a tool to vent his anger. And this tool was the male protagonist Mitty, played by Jim Carrey. Mitty's expression was innocent and depressed. Some viewers saw this scene and laughed immediately. Jim Carrey's image is so stupid. In fact, there is no need to remind. The content of the film has not yet unfolded. The audience just saw this person and got excited, and they felt happy when they acted. There is no way. These days, Jim Carrey is the most famous comedy star in Hollywood and even internationally, and the audience is very popular. Otherwise, he would not be the first to enter the $20 million salary, the real salary number one. Moreover, Hollywood salary assessment is based on market appeal and past performance. An Oscar winner certainly doesn't get as much as a popular movie star. At the same level, the status of the actor comes first. Whenever Jim Carrey participates in a comedy, the audience will be happy. Just looking at his face makes you want to laugh. Not to mention that Mitty's character is very loser and he always daydreams. His boss is still finding faults with him. He has immersed himself in his own world, imagining that he has become a rich man and bought a newspaper. In turn, his boss is very flattering. It's really yay, but it's a comedy, and the lighter plot is obviously in line with the audience's wishes. In short, the atmosphere of watching movies in the theater is very active. Every few minutes, there will be a scene that makes people laugh. What guy successfully picked up girls and even kissed them, but in the end, the beautiful editor-in-chief of the newspaper just treated Mitty normally. What about walking on the road, imagining that there was a fire in the building, and he bravely saved people, and won the favor of countless onlookers? But in the end, these are all daydreams, none of which will come true. Even the latest edition of the magazine lacks photo materials. It happened that the film sent by a wild landscape photographer he followed was missing the one that made him most satisfied. Mitty was very unwilling to accept the fact that the newspaper's performance was not good and it was going to go bankrupt due to loss-making operations. With the encouragement of the beautiful editor-in-chief, he decided to set out to find the famous photographer and publish the magazine again. But on the road, Mitty's luck was very bad. He often missed the bus, or when he hired transportation, he couldn't travel smoothly due to various accidents. Every time this happened, the audience would laugh. However, Mitty had a good mentality and insisted on looking no matter what. The various scenery on the journey attracted everyone's attention to the screen. Bella thought to herself, this work has a great grasp of the music and the beauty of the lens. Putting aside those jokes, it is just like a specially shot travel promotional film, showing the beautiful scenery of the Netherlands, New Zealand, Iceland and other places to the fullest, and even giving people an impulse to travel whenever they want. If that were the case, the plot would inevitably be less appealing, but later Mitty took a helicopter with great difficulty and finally found the photographer played by Jane Reno, got the film, and went back to prepare the latest issue of the magazine, but found that the newspaper had closed down and his colleagues had left. Mitty walked lonely on the street at dusk. This time he had no illusions and accepted the facts. Even in the final ending, he was still a loser in his career, but he took the initiative to take the steps in his life. He experienced the beauty of travel in person, instead of staying in the town all day and fantasizing about those beautiful scenery photos. Similarly, he had worked hard for the future of the newspaper, which was enough not to leave too many regrets. At least, he had taken action. After the movie ended, Bella stood up and left amid praise and applause. It's really interesting, so cool to watch. Jim Carrey is so funny, he's so unlucky. The audience was happy and naturally praised. After returning home, Bella also wrote in her review of Daydreamer, most of the time in life is dull and lacks excitement. Many people yearn for the magnificent fantasy, but end up with a dull daily life. How should I put it? This movie is also true. The protagonists in it all have their own troubles, and none of them have achieved success in the secular sense. But it is beautiful. Really, the visual, auditory, and immersive beauty. Many shots can be cut out and used as landscape photos directly. Between those strange mountains and rivers, on the top of the plateau, the clear sunshine shines down, making it difficult for people not to be intoxicated. Especially watching Mitty running around the world with grey hair. People envy and want a life like him. Of course, the protagonist may not think so. But when he took this step, opened the travel diary that his father gave him but never used, and began to record the bits and pieces of his journey, he had already said goodbye to the past. Let me quote a narration from the movie as the end. Life may still be the same, but I know that I'm no longer the same me. And there is no doubt that this is also a somewhat inspirational work. The ending is not very beautiful, but it is heartfelt. Isn't it also inspirational that the journey that has been postponed for many years finally came true, not in a dream? Finally, I suddenly remembered a sentence that can echo the title of the movie. You still have to daydream, just in case you see a ghost. Whether you admit it or not, some dreams are always touching. Chapter 525. Outdated. Subscribe, vote. When he woke up, another work he participated in had already landed in the theaters. After washing up, Jim Carrey looked in the mirror and found that the person in front of him was in low spirits and a little depressed. Well, I admit that I didn't sleep well last night. Although I shouldn't be so impatient. After filming many movies, how can I not be alert all the time in such a competitive circle as Hollywood, let alone keep a normal mind? After all, the performance of each work I participated in is related to the future of an actor's career. After a quick breakfast, Jim Carrey immediately rushed to the Death Star building of CAA. His agent Stanton had been waiting there for a long time. In the office, there were 5 or 6 people around. Strictly speaking, they all belonged to Jim Carrey's personal business team. Whether it was news, public relations or negotiations, they basically served Jim Carrey's interests. This is why CAA can win over the most superstars. It is really a perfect system and personnel, and it is fully considered. Everyone got together, of course, for the movie Daydreamer. Given Jim Carrey's current status and market appeal, CAA staff worked for a long time to roughly sort out the feedback from all aspects after the release of the movie yesterday, and will refer to these market information to formulate positive or concessionary publicity strategies. Of course, it is not aimed at the entire movie, but simply for Jim Carrey's personal star career. After all, if the worst conclusion is that, if the box office of The Dreamers is not good, we have to find a way to reduce the presence of the protagonist Jim Carrey and reduce the loss of reputation, which means that for a period of time, we have to avoid the media and reduce travel. Then, the arrangement of some activities should be adjusted accordingly. However, The Dreamers did not disappoint everyone in the office. The method adopted by Blue Butterfly Pictures to take advantage of the market heat of Million Dollar Baby and quickly release it immediately ignited the audience's enthusiasm for watching movies. Moreover, how to say it, The Dreamers has a stronger commercial attribute and is more likely to be sought after by the audience. What made Jim Carrey's economic team even happier was that the film continued the positive reviews that Lyman had always given. Even the critics, who were always very harsh on Jim Carrey and disliked his acting style of acting crazy and stupid in comedy movies, did not criticize him this time. You know, Dumb and Dumber was a box office hit, but at that time, it was almost all criticism. Of course, film critics have always disliked the comedy genre, let alone comedians. Are the box office data out? Someone urged. Stanton replied, I have sent people to collect and summarize data from Blue Butterfly Pictures and Nielsen. I think it will be ready in a while. After saying this, Stanton turned to Jim Carrey and said, the initial feedback from the film is better than all of us expected. Not only the critics, but also the real-time on-site survey information from the audience and fans can also show the popularity of the film. The statistics company we commissioned collected random evaluations from 2,000 people, of which more than 80% gave the film an A grade, and less than 5% failed. So, the film has the potential to be a hit. Jim Carrey asked anxiously. It's hard to say. After all, we don't know how the box office will be after the release. Aren't there many movies with good reputations but not popular? That's right. Jim Carrey suppressed his urgency, but he still exuded a sense of impatience. Although Jim Carrey was optimistic about Lyman's directing ability, he was still a little nervous. If he failed this time, Jim Carrey didn't want to imagine what the media would say about him. They would definitely give the example that he was out of date and couldn't keep up with the changes in the market. To be honest, he himself believes in this theory. 7 or 8 years ago, none of the comedy works he starred in had a box office of less than 100 million. The Mask even only had an investment of $23 million, including publicity, and won $351 million worldwide, and finally ranked 4th in the top 10 best-selling movies in the world in 1994. That was 1994, and the market was recognized to be prosperous, and blockbusters were produced frequently. And even so, he starred in less than $350,000 and was just an actor who had just emerged. He played the leading role, but defeated many opponents, second only to Disney's hand-painted animation peak The Lion King, Forrest Gump which won 4 heavyweight awards at the 67th Academy Awards, and Cameron's masterpiece True Lies. But now, the movies he participated in can't even touch the box office threshold of the past, let alone surpass the past. Because of the increase in film pay, many studios think that it is not worth the loss to invite him to star, and it is better to support newcomers. It has to be said that this is very Hollywood, and his active transformation also shows that he is tired, and it is not enough for the group of vampires to recognize his value. This made Jim Carrey a little worried that the newspaper media's argument would become a reality. Outdated. He had never thought about living like that. But the more uneasy he felt, the more he wanted to find something to comfort him. While waiting, Jim Carrey picked up some of the latest newspapers and started reading them. When he saw the first one, he felt relieved. The Los Angeles Daily News wrote in its film review column, "The film is a splendid audiovisual feast, beautiful shots, relaxing music, and the wonderful performances of several actors make people feel like they are on a road trip, enjoying a leisurely time while driving, which is a rare spiritual cleansing." At the same time, what is even more rare is the life philosophy presented in the film, which sublimates the theme and makes the film not just a landscape film, but also a plot that conveys a creed. The San Francisco Times said, "The style of the film is quite unique and contains many fantasy humor elements. Playing football in the desert, skateboarding on the road, flying to the plateau, and diving into the sea, and even flying over the eaves and walls to be a hero. Although these are all daydreaming imaginations, the plot is also very bland and there is no climax, which makes people feel that the protagonist is very ordinary, even a loser. But even though we know all this, we still feel moved by the protagonist's actions in the end. Perhaps this is the charm of this movie. It makes you think after laughing. It uses a fantastic framework to tell a small story, but it makes the audience engaged and resonate. There is no doubt that The Dreamers has done it. It has the most beautiful scenery in comedy films, the funniest scenery films, and the most matching music in scenery comedies. These are the only 3 points. If you want to see Jim Carrey's various misfortunes, don't miss it. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.